Spencer. We're swapped around again.
Huh?
We're swapped around again. Hold on.
Yep, I know you do it on purpose.
Fruit flies.
Yes.
Oh my word.
Oh my gosh,
Blame
we
that
had
horrible.
so
There
many
you go.
fruit flies in my house.
There he is. What happened, Joe?
And we're live.
I'm telling you, brother. I know what happened, but the intro like started and just froze. We're sitting here. We didn't know what was going on.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It ran fine on my end. Everything looked good.
It was
Anyway,
locked up.
hello to everybody that's watching, everybody in chat. Hello, moderators. Thank you for being here. So, Squirrel will be along soon enough. She's having trouble getting on, something with the internet down there. But, so today we're going to have Sandra and Jeffrey on to talk about, they've been on before, but I wanted to, after talking to them for the past month, I realized there's a lot of details of stuff that we kind of didn't really go over. And they've had, quite a bit of experience. So to set it up for the show, just so everybody knows, they've had recent stuff happen, which is part of the reason why we're doing another episode with them. But we're gonna start from the beginning and go through it in a lot more detailed fashion this time. They live not too far away from Greg, so they're actually there at House's Man Cave.
Let me work my magic and see if I can link Sandra in with us really quick. Let's see. Look right here.
It's amazing. Hey, Sandra.
Hello.
Hey, Jeffrey.
You're a whiz.
Hello.
But they don't live too far away, and I swear, y'all, after 2 years of doing this, you give us another year and everybody in America is going to start to slowly but surely understand that the South's got just as many damn boogers as the North. But before we get going, I do have to throw this up here. Everybody, if you would, we lost another good one this week. Mr. Jeff Townsend, he was a friend of ours. He supported us. He supported a lot of the people that we know. He was on the 168 with Carrie. He was good friends with Donnie Miller in Florida. Old Jeff right there. If you would just pause for a moment and have some prayers for him. And he was a good one. Sorry he's gone. Jeff, we'll miss you, buddy. But it happens, folks. Anyway.
Oh, yeah. That day will come for everybody. It ain't if you're gonna go, it's when you're gonna go, and just making sure that you're right where you need to be.
Yeah. Well, anyway, to everybody that actually got to camp with Jeff and meet Jeff, he was a good guy. He was former military. Something about flying planes. I don't know if he was a pilot or some type of engineer that was.
He worked for like Lockheed Martin, Spencer, I think so it was, and he told me it's probably been a year ago. He and I talked for probably an hour and a half about he was a mechanic. There she is. Jeff was a mechanic and actually like worked on jet engines and stuff.
Yeah, I know he worked at Lockheed. I thought he was actually in the planes themselves whenever he was he Marine or Air Force?
I don't remember which. He told me, but I
told me too, but Anyway, point being, Jeff was a really good guy. He always wanted to do security on all of the meet and greets and any of the outings. He was like, I got y'all's back. You're covered. You're safe. Anyway, he was a great guy. Squirrel, thank you for joining us.
Man, I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. I never shut my computer down and it done an update. And this is the first time I've tried to get back in and it wouldn't even let me get signed back in. It kept telling me to change a PIN and I don't know. So I just shut it back down and restarted it and it went back to normal.
Did you just come from like a modeling
Hey,
interview?
Sandra.
Or?
Hey, Misty.
That's what I'm talking about. She comes on here. Looks like
What's wrong with me?
you just been in a fashion shoot.
Yeah.
Jeffrey heard Misty, and he's running over here to the computer.
Look here. Stick your head on over in here. Look here. Hello.
Hey, Jeffrey.
How you been, Misty?
That's my buddy right there. He helps me.
I'm gonna let him. I'll let him dive right here in this chair in a minute, and I'll get back in a little while. We'll let him get on here and tell y'all what all he's encountered.
Well, first, let's set the stage. So, again, like I said, we've done this before. We didn't do it in a lot of detail. So we're going to start from the beginning so that you guys have a better understanding. Sandra, from the very get-go, and please describe the land and the way that the house is set and everything so that people will know as you're moving forward so they'll understand what you're talking about. But start from the very beginning of whenever you first had any kind of experience with boogers, and we'll go from there.
Well, the first time it crossed our mind that we might have something is Jeffrey and we moved in there in 2004, in the day before Thanksgiving. And then in the spring of 2005, Jeffrey and I were sitting in his first bedroom. He's alternated between the two bedrooms in the house. And we had something walk by the end of the house. And you could tell it was bipedal that shook the wall of the house. I mean, it was just boom, boom, boom. And we just literally sat there with our mouths open. He was only 9.5, 10 years old. It scared him. It didn't do too much, too good for me either. Because, I hadn't been exposed to them since I was 13. The first experience and the only experience I'd had. And then from that point, the next thing that happened there, now talking about where the house is, our house faces east, and we have creeks around us, pretty dense woods on the south and the west side, and a pretty good bit of woods on the north side. The east side, as the crow flies, will take you over towards interstates and highways and stuff. So, but back then, we didn't have any development in that area. We just had the pastures, the woods, cows, all that around us. And I had mentioned before, we're close to a campground. And they were not real close to us as far as right next door. There was woods between us and them. So, next thing that occurred was...
Whoa. Hold on. See, Sandra's going to make me narrate this whole show. I told her start from the beginning, and she's like, well, other than the time I was 13, she skipped all over that.
Well, we covered that in pretty much detail, Spencer.
I said we got to start from the beginning one more time. Go back to 13, please.
Okay.
Did you grow up in Alabama? You lived there all your life?
Yes. Can't you tell from the voice?
Yes.
We lived on a 180-acre farm, had cows, chickens, goats, everything you could imagine, plenty of livestock. We had 5 catfish ponds. We had truck crops. We had a huge garden. When I was 13, in November, it's about 2 weeks after Halloween, is when the one looked through the bedroom window. When I felt like something was staring at me, and I went over and looked, And, we went through, on the original show I was on, the fact that it returned a couple more nights. How much detail do you want me to go into?
She's getting feisty already. Just
It comes with this stuff here.
There you go.
Whenever you say it came back, it came back a few times, right?
Right.
Was it coming specifically to your window?
It only came to my window. Nobody else saw it.
You were 13.
I was 13. I just turned 13 in September prior to this happening.
So it was September. So it was in the fall of the year. I can't remember if you said that you told your parents or not. Did you tell them?
No, I was afraid Daddy would go outside and get hurt.
Okay.
That was just, the fear that I had for him.
I remember that you got a pretty good look at it. I remember you talking about that. But for anybody that has not heard that original show, would you please just one more time describe what you saw in the window, how high the window was off the ground?
Okay. I was watching TV, felt like something, you know how you get the heebie-jeebies, you feel like somebody's looking at you.
Creepy feels, yeah.
Right. And so I stood up and went to the window. We had yellow sheer curtains hanging over them, and the window was cracked probably about that far from the top because it was cool. And grandmother always cracked the windows throughout the house for ventilation because she lived with us. I shared a room with my grandmother and brothers at that time. And I pulled the curtain back, and there was his face. Well, the first thing I thought was it was our neighbors playing a trick on me. So I get right up in his face to the pane, and I yell at it. And I call their names. I say, "Go home, Tommy. Go home." It's the brother's name. And that's when it blinked. And its face was slightly tilted, and I could see just a tiny bit of white. Not much, but it was black. The whole eye was black, but just a tiny bit of white when it blinked in the corner. After you questioned me the first time, I'm going to add this. We went back to that house, my husband and I. The windows are the same. They have, because you and Greg brought up a thing, I thought it was maybe about 6.5 feet tall. And I thought, in my mind, we had the panes in the windows. It's a single pane over a single pane. Okay. So its head took up probably this much of the window. And y'all discussed the fact that the blocks, how the houses were built then, because my granddad and dad built the house. It was on 3 cement blocks, and then it had that, what do you call that, rim joist around it.
Would be your plate, yeah.
So it had to be another 2 feet to the bottom of the shingles on the outside of the house. So that thing had to be 8.5 feet tall.
Yeah, 8-inch blocks makes the foundation 24, and then up to the top of the window. Yeah, so it was tall.
So it was a lot taller than what I thought, which gave me, as an adult, the heebie-jeebies thinking about that. That night, it stayed there for a while. I was changing clothes to go to bed because mom and dad had told us all it's time to go to bed. And I kept taking my foot and pulling the curtain back, and in the moonlight, you could still see him standing there. But see, and I had mentioned this to Greg, in my mind, there was only about this much room between it and the next, where the house jutted out, but there was really about 4 feet. So the way he was turned, he was pretty wide too, now that I've gone back and looked at that area. It kind of jolted everything. The questions that you brought up in the first interview. So after that, he didn't come back the next night. That was a Thursday night. And then the Saturday night, it was back. I don't remember it staying there as long, but I remember it being back about 10:30 that night, 10:30. Grandmother and I had a habit of, we read our Bible and talked a lot when we first laid down. So the boys might have went to sleep, but we didn't. But I was already nervous because I had seen that. Now, its face, back to its face, it was black, and it had, I described it as a Neanderthal nose. And throughout my life, I have looked for pictures of it, the nose. And that's as close as I can get. It's like the pictures that they show in the history books of Neanderthal man, that bulbous, broad nose. It wasn't an 8 pushed up type nose.
Right.
Okay. So fast forward to the next week. After school, my responsibility was to go walk the chicken house. So I came in from school. I'm walking the chicken house, and I'm walking from south to north, and a shadow passes over me. I look, and there it is walking down the side of the chicken house. All I can see is from about what would be our shoulder down. Well, the chicken house is, what we say, Greg, about 6 feet at where the tin comes down.
Yeah,
It is. Yeah.
it'd be 26.7 probably.
Something like that. Well, that scared me. I watched it walk to the end of the chicken house, and the doors were open. And it walked around to where the doors were, because we had the big screens over them. And it stood there. The chickens all ran back. They do a semicircle thing, and it just stood there. Well, it scared me. I got in the heater room in the chicken house, the furnace room. Stayed in there for a little bit, ducked up and down till I could see it turn and walk down our fence line. When it started down the fence line, I went and got on my motorcycle and went home. I skipped the rest of the chicken house, went to the house. So that was the third time. And that's just in a week's time. During that week, and I can't tell you what night, it did come back one more time to the window of the house. Same deal with it standing there. So basically the same place. The next week, we were still doing late season hay. Daddy baled up soybean stems and stuff. So I was at home by myself in the afternoon, and they'd already gone off. Mom and the boys and Dad, they were out doing hay. I go to the front door and looked out, and it's standing in the spillway of our neighbor's pond, which is probably 1/10 of a mile from our front door to their pond. And I just stood there and watched it, and it was standing in the spillway, and then it turned and started off the backside of their pond. And the backside of the spillway is pretty steep, and that went down into the wooded area behind all of our houses. Now, behind our houses was the railroad tracks. Between the edge of the woods and the railroad tracks, also a creek, but it's a really big wooded area, and it still is to this day. There's no development back there. And that's the last I saw that one when I was a kid. Well, no, that I apologize. I told you we had little motorcycles that we ran around on, and I remembered it really jogged the memory. We had a lean-to on our barn where my grandmother raised night crawlers, and in the dirt.
Yes.
And she had like 4-foot bed, and then a space that you walked in, and another 4-foot bed. And as I was coming up through there one afternoon, I remember looking over that way, and there was one standing in that lean-to. But he wasn't standing straight up. He was leaning forward because he couldn't stand straight up. The edge of the lean-to is about 6 feet. And then just was a gradual slope up to meet the rest of the barn. So all I remember is his head was tucked over. He was kind of in the middle of it, probably at the 7-foot part of it. Probably the same one. And another thing I brought up to you, I think, was grandmother had deep freezes, old-fashioned refrigerators and deep freezers that she raised worms in.
Yeah.
And in the evenings, she would take scoops of chicken feed and sprinkle all across the top of them to feed them. And she put a cement block in the corner of it and lower the lid so if it rained, it didn't flood them out, even though we had drain holes in it. And that's where she dug. She had red worms and night crawlers and those, but mostly red worms. And they lined up all around my dad's shop. She went through a time, and I can't tell you how many nights it happened, she'd go out the next day and the blocks would be on the ground. And these were, big cement blocks. They'd be on the ground and the lids would be closed. So my question was, were they after the feed or the worms? She didn't know what was causing it, what would be getting into it. But now that we think back, that's probably what was moving the blocks and getting into the worm beds.
Just so everybody knows, Sandra told me about the earthworm thing again last night. I was like, but why would they be getting in there for worms? Because you can pick up any log that's laying on the ground and find worms underneath of it. And then she was like, oh, she used to put that chicken feed on top to feed them. And I
just thought of something else she did. She threw kitchen scraps in there.
Yeah.
Eggshells and kitchen scraps. Ding, ding, ding.
This is why we go back to whenever you're 13. Don't you get all huffy with me whenever I say we got to start back from the beginning. Hey.
Well, if there's a lot of worms, that's protein too.
Yeah,
let me throw this in. I mean, part of some of the people is in my family and some of my neighbors had worm beds. And y'all, I've seen them. A lot of times they would take a piece of carpet and put over right on the dirt, and it would have that chicken feed and the scraps and stuff. And they would put that on the dirt, and of course all the worms would be down in the soil. But they would cover it and they would wet that piece of carpet. And you could go back within about an hour and just take that carpet and flip it back. And the worm, it would be nothing but worms. They would come out of that dirt, and it would be 3 or 4 inches thick. And it would just be working alive. You could just take and rake and just pick up. It'd be a ball of worms, ever how big you could squeeze them. It would just come to the top. And that's how they would harvest them to sell them, is they would feed them and they'll come to the top and they just rake them up. I mean, one of my relatives, that's what he was selling to bait stores. And people would come and buy a 5-gallon bucket with no dirt. It would just be worms, and he would carry them and put them in the little containers with the soil. But that's how they would catch them, is they would feed them that chicken feed, cover it up with carpet, wet it, give it about an hour and flip it back. And they would just be solid worms.
It goes. I've never heard of the carpet thing. Your story about where they were talking down the hill from you whenever you were hunting, and you talk about the one picking up the tree and throwing it.
Oh, yeah.
There's no doubt in my mind that they were digging for grubs and worms and all that kind of stuff. All I'm saying is, if they can get that in the wild, that would be like if they could go out in the wild and there was just random watermelon patches in the middle of the woods. They probably wouldn't be stealing them from people's gardens per se. I wonder if it wasn't more along the lines of the chicken feed, but maybe they were just coming for the worms, or it could have been the food scraps or whatever. I do have to ask you though, before you go back to where we started with whatever it was, 2005, when you heard the one walking outside your house where you live now. You heard it, you had a pretty good idea of what it was. Whenever you were 13, when it was at the window and all that stuff, did it walk and vibrate and make noise? Were the footsteps real heavy? Were you already like, okay, whenever I hear that, I know that that's a booger? And did it have any smell at all? I can't remember if we asked you that.
Okay. At the window, I didn't smell anything. No odor at all. And I don't remember it ever moving. But I did go outside to where it was standing. And we had holly bushes that grandmother had planted around the house. And it was behind a holly bush. And all the grass and everything, the pine needles were matted down that were there. Like something had been standing there and shuffled their feet. It was a large area that was matted down. And I remember going back there several times and looking at it. And see, I kept all this to myself because I didn't expect anybody to believe me. We'd already heard the story about the one that had looked in a church during revival.
Yeah.
And Daddy told us about it. And then in childhood, as far as childhood, a couple years later, they'd had one at a flea market not far from our house. It had stuck its head in the door while some people were there working on their booth at a flea market. And Greg had told me that he'd known about an incident kind of across the road from there where he'd gone into a chicken house.
Yep.
And then when my brother, I had gone to college. I was 70, fall of 78. My brother and friends used to camp down by one of the ponds. And he said they were down there one night and they slept in the beds of the truck. You know, they'd catch fish and cook fish and goof off down there and probably drink beer and do whatever else teenage boys do when their mom and dad's not watching them.
We do.
And he said there was this god awful noise down behind the pond in the woods. And they all had, you know, of course, gun racks and their guns. And he said they unloaded everything they had down into the woods.
Good.
He said you could hear it running. He said they didn't know what it was, but they didn't care. They didn't want it coming out. They just shot at it.
They were asking for a problem. So whenever you moved in this property, let me ask you this. Whenever you bought the property, whenever you went out there to look at it and everything, now you're fairly rural. I've seen your location, the way that the creeks move through there with all those S-turns and the fingers coming down. It's the perfect area. You've got a campground around there. You and I have talked about, you know, I'm of the belief, of the opinion that they're opportunistic. If you have a campground where people go camping and they leave food scraps and trash and everything, that's going to draw them. I've seen around Greg's area. I roughly know where you are in person, but I can't say it for a detail. Y'all can tell me though, how many chicken houses, how many pig farms, all that stuff you got within 1 or 2 miles of you?
A bunch of them.
So, I mean, again, just like most of Alabama, I mean, you're already loaded. You got boogers. So the area is right. When you went out there and you looked at the property, did you see any signs of anything that gave you hesitation?
No, it just seemed secluded, and I like the fact that I didn't have people right up under me.
Right.
It had been vacant for 3 years.
Wonder why.
A divorce, and the people just he moved closer to his job, and she moved to Decatur, Alabama.
Okay.
So they're not been the only people that'd been on the property during that time was a landscaper. Literally, he cut the grass a couple times in the summer.
Did y'all build the outside where your pottery barn thing is? Did y'all build that, or was that already there?
I bought a Yoder building for my ceramic shop, and then we built the building next to it that has the tin roof. We built that one on the property.
And did y'all put the fencing up, or was the fencing already there?
We put the fencing up because of
Our dogs.
Jeffrey and our dogs. We had a couple incidents where people from the campground managed to circle way around and come up on our property.
How far is the campground, just so everybody knows?
Literally now,
Very close.
very close.
Very,
They've
almost like-
expanded.
Well, very, very close.
Yes.
On the map, it looks to be about 500 yards or so, but that's just looking at it on a map.
Yeah, that or less.
But see, they've expanded. When we first moved there, there was a pasture full, there was Clydesdale horses and donkeys and other things
They moved to a different pasture.
there, right. And now they're expanding.
Okay, so can we get Jeff in here now? And let's go back to 2025. You heard the footsteps. I'd like to hear Jeffrey talk about hearing the footsteps, if he would.
It was loud.
And it,
Made the whole house shake.
well, to him, it was a whole house.
Okay.
I was very young at that time.
But he wasn't sure he wanted to stay in that bedroom. He didn't realize that it didn't matter which room he was in, it would have happened in both rooms
Okay.
because of the location of the rooms and where it walked through. but it was walking from the back down the direction of the creek to the front, which is where all of our fruit trees and everything's at.
But you said this. What time of year was it?
But this was in the fall.
Okay, right. So there wasn't
No,
no frost.
spring. I apologize, spring. That was in the spring,
That was in the spring. Okay, all right.
early
When
spring.
it started raining.
So, Jeff, when you first heard it, what did you think it was?
I had no clue at the time.
It was
A
just
big
loud and
human
shook the
person?
house.
What'd you say?
I thought it'd be a big human person just walking near the house at the time.
That he could tell, you could tell it was on 2 feet.
Yes.
But big enough and loud enough to actually shake the house and everything, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Scared the crap out of me.
Then what? It would most people, buddy. Then what happened after that?
We had, well, Dad heard the whoops next. He was in the shop working, and that's when he heard the whoops, which was in the same year in the summertime. And then I have my cheat sheets because I tried to do it chronological.
Read them.
I mean, that's just so people know I've got something going on with my brain at the moment. So I have trouble with recall.
So does Misty. Don't feel bad.
Don't mess with me.
Let's see. That was in 2005 when Billy heard the footsteps. Oh, our nighttime movies. We have a den built on the other end of the house. And Jeffrey and I like
Watching movies
horror
at night.
movies and action movies and things that Billy won't watch. So we would go sit in the den and watch movies till like 11:30, 12 o'clock. And we would hear what would happen to the house
Or something gets thrown.
and hit the house. And that went on for, a long time.
What was getting thrown?
Like rocks, sticks, anything that can be picked up at the time.
It's kind of what it sounded like.
And slapping? Was there any slapping on the house?
We would hear slapping, and then it would sound like I would make the excuse that it was probably a raccoon or something brushing against the house. I had
Did you
that
have
had
a
all
TV
of them.
setting where it could be seen out the window?
No, that particular side of the den has no windows on it, the west side. And so it was on the dark side of the house. And we did not have night lights out there either at the time. So that's something that was added later on. And the cameras and stuff, that's been like in the last 5 years. We've always not particularly wanted everything lit up. But now you could read a newspaper out in the yard.
Yeah.
Usually I like to go outside and look at the stars.
He was bad to go outside on the deck at night. And I didn't want him scared to death. When you would hear something brush against the house, sometimes I'd say, well, maybe it's a deer that's ran into the house. You make excuses to keep from scaring him out of his mind. He would go outside at 10 o'clock at night and shoot basketball when he was 14, 15 years old.
Now I don't because I see weird stuff at night.
Well, you've already seen some stuff, Jeff, so you know what the deal is. But
Just regular, just black.
He drinks it black.
Okay.
so
Thank you.
whenever this was happening, Sandra, did you have a pretty good sense of what it was? You just
When it
weren't.
was
You just weren't.
When it kept happening, yes.
Yeah. You just
We
didn't
Go
want
ahead.
to get him stirred up. You just didn't
Right.
want to. Okay.
Because by that point, the curiosity gotten the better of me, and I was looking and reading and finding out that they slap buildings and things of that nature. So right here, Jim, I knew that that could possibly be what was going on. And
Well,
then
we all do it, Sandra. I mean, everybody, all of us that are moms, when your kid comes to you and you know something weird's going on, my kids used to come to me about spirits and things, and you try to tell them, you know, that you don't want to scare them to death, so you try to play it off until it gets to the point like that to where you worry about him going out.
and I didn't want him to get to where he didn't want to go outside.
Right.
You know, now we have to beg him to go out, but back then I wanted him outside. And I didn't care. We were allowed to play out in the front yard at night when we were kids, as long as the moon was bright or the security light was on or something, and Mom knew where we were at, go out on the swings or whatever. But generally, you know, and I wanted him out there. I wanted him to throw the basketball or go outside and look at stars, whatever he wanted to do. Anything that would foster his development in any way at all, I was for.
Yeah.
I like looking at the stars.
And
We got
now the woods was closer to our house at that time too. Now see, Spencer, since you looked at it, it's probably 60 feet further away from our house because we've had a lot of timber removed and underbrush removed. It was maybe 35 feet from the back of the house then. So they didn't have that far to walk out, to walk up to the house.
Yeah. Well, I mean, 60 feet ain't nothing, but.
Well, now it's 100 feet, is what I'm saying. Now it's 100.
Okay.
So, and we had deer all through the yard. We had deer come in all the time. We had deer in the front yard. We had deer in the side yard. And, you know, we don't have as many, but we still have deer come in the yard. Even with the fence up, because we leave the gates open.
Did you ever notice, just curious, did you ever notice certain times of the year, this is a big thing whenever I talk to a lot of people off air that have booger experiences, and I've seen this myself personally. You'll have a bunch of deer that are out there every day for 3 months. Then the deer go away, and that's whenever you start having booger activity for a couple weeks. You don't see hide nor hair of a deer. And then it's like whenever the boogers go away, the deer come back. It's like the boogers are following the deer. Did you ever notice a pattern with the deer? If you're talking about you had that many of them, did you ever notice a pattern of the deer movement?
Actually, I never put it together, to be honest. Back then, I didn't. No, I really didn't. You know, we would have 7 or 8 deer, like I said, on the south end that would go through, but I don't really remember it being any particular, it being a different time of year from the boogers coming around. Now, most of the time for them, it seemed to be like in the fall and in the spring for the boogers.
Yeah, well, that's how it is here, and I've seen that in Alabama also. Whenever I've been there, but let me ask you this: all of the livestock that y'all have had, did you notice any difference in behavior of the livestock, either yours or your neighbors right around you? Did you notice any difference whenever you had booger activity?
The only thing that I can say is we had a deck at one point on the back of our house, and we had 3 dogs at that time. And our dogs would get up under that deck, and you could hear them sound like they were trying to go in through the wall of the house. You know, and they were not inside dogs, but they would come in once in a while. But they stayed out pretty much all the time. But during the time that we had the slaps and things like that going on, those dogs would do their dead level best
to get in the house,
to get as far up against that house as they could get,
or
try to come in the house. And they would literally try to run over you coming in the house. We had a Dalmatian and 2 Dachshunds.
One of them was named Sig, and the other one was
Daisy.
Daisy.
But, you know, there was a difference there. And we had another time where, from the distance, Jeffrey thought it was a person, but there was something at the back fence that was looking at the dogs. And when he opened the door, it took off running for the woods.
Yeah.
That could be added to, was it a booger? Was it not a booger? We don't know.
Well,
I couldn't tell if it had pants on or not on.
Now, the first time he saw one was about 2012, I think. We had come in from a camping trip and we had our shop open. And Billy asked him to go and close the doors on the shop. So Jeffrey went in the side door because you had to go inside to pull those doors together to lock them. And tell him what happened.
He basically poked his head around the end of the building. Me and him was, let me think. Me and him was eye to eye looking. I turned around and went back to the house. I didn't worry about closing up the shop until the next day. He was like this.
now, all right, hold on. Jeffrey, how far away was your face from his face?
6 or 7 feet.
6 to 7 feet.
6 or 7.
6 or 7, I said.
Yeah, that's where it, from where he showed me he was standing to the end of the shop was about 6 or 7 feet.
You just said that it tilted and leaned around, right?
Yes, only the head was poking around.
Right.
It was pitch black. I couldn't tell any features of it. I thought it was wearing a hoodie, like a black hoodie like this.
How big do you think its head was? Was it as big as a basketball? Was it bigger?
Looked like it was bigger than a basketball.
So it was bigger than your head. You could tell it was bigger than you, right? Could
Yes.
you see the eyes at all? Could you see
No,
any
I
eyes?
couldn't because there was no lights on on the end of the building at the time, so I couldn't really see the features. I thought it was someone wearing a black hoodie at the time, keeping it
That's the way
shadowed.
he described it. It was about 7:45, 8 o'clock at night.
So it was already dark outside.
Close to dark. It was summer.
Yes,
Well, no, it was September. September, the Tuesday after Labor Day.
yes. It was pitch black out there, and I wish I took a picture of it.
Don't worry about that. Let me ask you
How many
this.
people
Did
said
it try
that?
to say anything to you or make any noises?
No, it just looked at me. Then when I turned around, I looked back, and it wasn't there anymore.
Did you see it move? Did you see it stick its head around? Or
Yeah.
did you just, okay, so you saw it move. Did it move real quick? Did it move slow?
At the time I was speeding to the house, I was scared out of my mind. It did this, slowly moved its head back and took off.
Okay. Did you hear it take off?
No, I didn't hear it make no noise at all.
He was running in the other direction.
Yeah. So it scared me, so that shop stayed open all night long.
Did you see any teeth?
No.
So you just saw a dark shape that reached around and looked at you, right?
Yes.
Did you get any kind of, you didn't get no mind speak, did you? It didn't speak in your head, did it?
No.
Okay. All right.
I was screaming in my head.
I bet you were, brother. I would be too. Did you? Okay, wait. One last thing. What were you doing right before then? What were you doing?
I was walking to the shop to close it up, like they said.
Across the shop.
Across the shop.
Were you making any noise? Were you eating a snack? Were you doing anything?
Now, not to interrupt, but the floor of the shop was gravel.
Yes.
So your footsteps probably made some noise.
I didn't make it to the shop though.
No, you did. You were inside the shop.
No.
That is
I
right.
was heading towards the shop. And right to this point of the shop door exit where I was about
Well,
to
that's
go
still
in.
the gravel driveway.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was making it there. Then it poked his head around and looked at me like,
From the side.
yes. There was that scared the crap out of me.
Okay. All right.
Give me 1 second. I'll sip my coffee.
So what's the next thing? You got your list.
True. Hey, and then I brought that up. I don't. We had foster kids for a little while, and the little girl used to say at night, "Papa, I'll look through the bedroom window." This is something we've just talked about lately. We wondered what Papa was. If it was hairy and bearded and she could see a face, maybe she thought that's what it was. We never saw it. I just taught her to say, "Go away, Papa." I didn't know what else because I never caught it. And I would hear her at night yell, "Go away, Papa." And by the time I got there, whatever was there was gone. She was about 2.5, 3 years old. But whatever was looking in the bedroom window at her, to her looked like a Papa.
So 2.5, 3 years old.
She thought it was her and her little brother shared that room when we had them. And
Usually it's the same room
it's the room he's in now.
Yeah.
But they had the big 6-foot windows, and we had to take, because she was a heathen.
She
We had
climbs
to
out
take
over everything.
the blinds down and the curtains down in the room because she would rip them down if you put anything up. Ever had a feral child, there she was. But she literally was telling us Papa was looking through the window. And I told her to tell Papa to go away. And you would hear her at night about 11 o'clock yell, "Go away, Papa," because this kid never slept hardly ever. We had to
I had to stay up
barricade her in the room, and Jeffrey and I would have to go put her back in bed at night.
because she would climb over the fence.
And we've just talked about this in the last few weeks because Papa has been a booger. Not everything in this world is a Bigfoot. I say that all the time.
Right.
But it makes you wonder. That's just another thing that happened while we were there. And I related, not long after that was the dog incident, where we got the new puppy, 2012, after the foster kids had left, where the dog got out and took off down through the woods when the woods were close to the house. And we, Jeffrey went to one side of the house and I went on the other, and we had these 2 big trees, and the eyes came around the tree.
You're still feral. Sorry.
And and I knew it wasn't an owl because of the shape of the eyes and the color of the eyes. And I asked it to please let us get our puppy, and not to hurt it, let us get our puppy and go back in the house. So I had Jeffrey go around the house and come to where I was at, and we managed to finally get the puppy in and went back in. But it did not make any effort to come out. It was Grace. Outside of past those trees, it was 2 massive trees. And I couldn't see anything else. This was dark, so I couldn't see anything protruding on either side of the tree except the eyes. And the eyes were tilted looking.
What color? How big?
Oh, they were big. Probably about like that.
So, like what a lot of people say about like almost the size of those reflectors you see at the end of a driveway, like a bicycle reflector.
Not the great, right. And
color?
they were kind of a yellowy, reddish, yellowy, orangey looking color.
It's raining.
Might be. Supposed to. And shortly after that's when Billy heard whoops again when he was out in his shop. Well, he said not a whoop, a scream of some kind, and it scared him. And he came in the house. And I was cooking, and he came in, he said, "Did you hear that?" And I said, "No. I didn't. I was in the house with too much noise going on."
What time of year?
This again was in the fall because it was, I looked it up, it was the end of September. Grace was about 4 months old. She wasn't a big puppy. She's a boxer, so she's about 4 months old.
She's getting that age today.
Yeah. And so again, activity in the fall.
Yeah.
right. Hang on just a second.
Yeah,
What was
that
on
was
the
a
other
good
side
that
of
was a good
the
question.
corner?
Whenever
How far
Jeffrey
to the shop?
whenever Jeff saw the one at the shop, somebody asked what's on the other side of the corner and how far to the shop. I'm not sure what
From
they
the
mean.
house to the shop,
And
How far
about
to the
45.
tree line?
far to the
How
tree
far to the
line?
tree line?
From the front side of the shop's 45 feet, and at the time, probably about 35 feet to the tree line from the back
And
of the shop.
what was on the other side of the shop? Anything, or was it just
On
land?
the other, on the back side of the shop, there was a Connex box with about 12 feet of just grass
Emptiness.
between it. And on the other side of that Connex was a pasture that we would cut the corner. It was kind of a triangular shaped corner. We kept it cut, but all around that area was solid blue blackberries, in blackberry season. Honeysuckle, blackberry, wild vines, all growing along through there. And all this, the trail, there's a 4-foot trail that had been cut years ago, kind of straight back from the shop, the south edge of the shop, down to the creek. Now, I don't know if I added it before, but I'll tell you now, the deepest part of that section of the creek is right down behind our house. It's deep enough that our neighbor used to go fishing down there.
Yeah, I was getting ready to ask. So there's fish in the creek. The creek
Yeah.
is big enough to house fish.
Yeah,
Okay, so it's out there eating fish and blackberries, and Jeffrey comes stomping through the gravel, and it just sticks its head around looking at Jeff. Jeff, why you make so much noise? Don't make so much
I
noise.
didn't really make that much noise. Now there's a dog barking in the background.
But
All right. Well,
Yeah.
Go. All right. Go back to your list. What
easily
happened?
distracted. That's okay.
Sorry.
Me too. Don't feel bad.
We all know.
Okay, around not too long around that time, when we first started having chickens, and Jeffrey had a couple chickens come up missing, and we couldn't find it. We noticed them in the morning that they were gone, so we started looking for the chickens to see if they just gotten out and were running around the yard. Well, next to the fence line, there we found the chickens, but they were about 45, 50 feet from
Chicken coop.
our property line on the neighbor. Down the fence line, the grass was 3 feet tall. It was in the fall, hadn't been cut. Something had walked through right out from the fence, long strides, big depressions in the grass, and then there lay the 2 chickens. Unharmed, they were just laying in the grass. But the footsteps led into the woods. We followed it all the way down to the end of the fence on into the woods.
I would point out that's the only time I've ever heard of anything dealing with boogers. That's the only time I've ever heard of chickens being taken and not being just gone, or smashed flat like a pancake. I've never heard of chickens just being removed and laid out there.
Just laying there in the grass.
And what did you think? I mean, what went through your mind when you're processing that and you're looking at it? What did you think had happened there?
Well, I knew the footsteps were too far apart to be a person.
Right.
And the impressions in the weed were large. But I thought, why did he just leave the chickens? Did we startle it? Was it there like early? Because we were out early in the morning. We'd be up at 6:30 outside before it got hot.
We scared it
to
off.
do stuff. Jeffrey said he thinks that
We scared
it
off
hurt
and
us,
it
and
just dropped them and
it
just
took off.
and left them.
That might be.
Because we were going out to gather eggs.
One of them was my silver feather, the one that sat on my shoulder all the time.
He has a memory like you wouldn't believe on his chickens.
So other than that time, this is something I meant to ask you on the phone the other day. Other than that time, did you ever have chickens go missing where you never found them again?
Yes, actually. this is part of the new stuff I need to say. I went out. Was it like a week ago?
That's kind of out of chronological order, but go ahead.
But it,
It's been a
you,
month
you
ago.
want to wait on it. It's out of order.
A month ago.
Okay.
It was a month ago.
Well, hold
But-
on. We'll get there. Hold on, Jeff. You can tell us about it when we get there. We got to
Okay.
keep in chronological order, or we're going to get off Sandra's
That's
list.
your fault, Spencer.
And-
You said.
I can't help it that you didn't go back to the beginning from the get-go. But anyway, all right,
You,
so-
Sandra.
I just did what Spencer said. Then I get in trouble for it.
It's
nobody
okay.
listens to me.
Let's get that started.
So keep
Okay.
going anyway.
During this time, we had a man move down and rented from our neighbor. And he would sit out late at night and smoke on the front porch. And I was over there one day and she got up and went in the house. And yes, I always, no, thank you. We cut up and talked a lot and messed with her. And she used to call herself, God rest her soul, Billy's girlfriend. Which he's not here to defend himself. But she got up and went in the house and he looked at me and he said, do you ever hear anything weird at night? And I kind of got a smirk on my face and I said, what are you talking about? He said, do you ever hear any noises over on your place at night? I said, sometimes. What are you talking about? I wanted him to tell me. He said, do you ever see anything? And I said, no. And he said, well, he said, he said, you may think I'm crazy, but I'm going to tell you. He said, there's a tall thing that comes from your property. And he said, it walks across behind that house over there. He was pointing to our neighbor's house. He said, it walks the woods behind them. And it comes out over here at the dog pen at the line of the next house. He said, it turns at the dog fence and it goes down through the woods. He said, I don't know what that thing is, but it's big. He said, it's big. He said, it's either dark brown or black. He said, it happens between 11 and 1 every single night. This man swore up and down. He believed it. He'd been sitting there watching it. He said, I don't move. I just see it come through there. And he said, it does the same thing. It walks from over at your place, behind that house, and down toward the creek. He said, there's not hardly ever a night that I don't see it. And he said it didn't make a sound. He didn't hear it make a sound. He just saw it. He said, and it was big. That's the thing he stressed. It was big and dark colored. This man lived there 3.5 years, never had any reason to lie to us about anything. But he didn't want to say anything in front of his landlady, which, first of all, she would have told him he was crazy as all get out. But he was convinced, and that wasn't the only time. He mentioned it several other times that he was still seeing it before he moved. He was there 3 years. So we know that somebody was walking.
Did
Ma'am?
you ever say you had anything messed with?
No. He said he just walked across. He said it comes out of the woods on your side. Because where he sat, you could see all the way to our shops. At the time, we didn't have, now we have some privacy trees up. But you could see all the way over the whole property. And because I could see when they were outside, and I'd walk down there and go visit with them.
Right.
So he had a bird's eye view of everything going on across there.
Was he saying that it was pretty much every night throughout the whole year, or was he saying certain times of the year? Or?
Well, when it was the coldest of the winter, we weren't outside sitting outside. So
Sure.
I couldn't say that it happened then, but when spring and summer and fall, when we were visiting, that's when he's talking about it happened. Now, like I said, pretty much anything that we noticed happened was spring and fall, or spring into early summer. I can't say that I remember seeing anything like July, August, not
Right.
September to close to Christmas. This year has been different. We'll get there, but this year's been different.
This year's been weird
Tell me
for
about
a
it.
lot of activity. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, we know that we had that going on. And then I may skip 2015,
You can't skip. Go back and find it. Make sure you're right.
I'm doing it. Thank you very much.
There's no skipping on this show.
I'm sorry, people out there watching us, but I'm doing this because of Spencer Jameson.
Yeah. Hey, I tell you what, I wish I took notes. I am worst about not doing that. And you can't remember it if you don't, especially if you have a lot of stuff that happens.
Well, I told them with everything going on with my brain that some of the stuff is kind of got foggy. You just need to sit down and write it down as best you can remember. So I did this week.
Yeah.
So I'll have a list.
It's easier.
Okay, in 2015 is when we found that greasy handprint on the car.
Yes.
I drove a Ford Flex. Jeffrey tried to take a picture of it. God love him. And he wound up with his hand across part of it.
Didn't we have a picture of that? Did we do a picture of that on
I don't think I sent a picture of that to you.
All right.
But the Flex back window, about that far down from it, had a crack. The heel of the hand, and you can see the heel of the hand and the thumb, and then the fingers splayed. It was huge. It was greasy, but it looked like the thing was on top of the car reaching down. I don't know any other way to describe it, the way the handprint went.
My hand was smaller than it.
Yeah, Jeffrey's hand was what? Less than half the size of it?
It was like this big.
Really?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
after going through a car wash, that print was still there. We had to take 409 to get it off.
Of course. Well, I mean, that's the typical rumor. I will tell you this. I can't tell you how many times I've looked at pictures of prints. Anthony had one on his truck from Mark Green's, and I don't know if this is something that they do. I don't know how to explain this, but I've seen a lot of prints where it looks like they reach across the car and their hand will be like instead of being on the side of a car and leaving it like that, it looks like they did like that. I've seen several of those.
I don't think you can see it if I hold it up. There's Jeffrey's hand, but right above his hand is the crack, and then that's the heel of the hand, and then the thumb is kind of under where his hand's at. He put his hand the opposite direction he should have.
I try my best.
Whatever, Jeffrey, you've got to do better. Try harder.
He was confused, but you're right. Now that you say that, it could have done like that across the car.
It just seems like they do that. I'm not saying that they do, but it seems like they reach over, just in my experience. Hey, I see Barbara's in here. Hey, Barbara.
And then the neighbor in 2016 is when he started clearing where the blackberry briars and all were over at the edge of the woods, and that fence, he took the fence down and he took a skid steer, I guess, and pushed back a lot of the blackberry briars. Well, we got on our golf cart and rode over there and looked, and he just pushed back some young trees and the blackberry briars, and I made the comment to Jeffrey that we wouldn't be able to pick the blackberries the coming year there. And it was really those nice big fat wild ones. So we had rode over and looked, and then the next day we rode back over there, and that's when we found the upside down tree. It was at the kind of the end of where he pushed them up towards us, but it was probably 9 feet tall, the root ball up in the air. It looked kind of like a cedar that was the limb skin off of it, but shoved down in the ground.
So all of the auxiliary branches were broken off.
We're gone.
Right. And it was shoved upside down in the ground, after the blackberry bushes got mowed down.
After he pushed all that back, and the blackberry bushes were pushed back in the woods.
All right.
And I made the comment that I guess that he ticked off the neighborhood hairy man because he destroyed the good fat blackberries.
Did Billy do that?
No, the neighbor did that owned the.
Oh, the neighbor did. I wonder if the neighbor got his house slapped throughout that week.
Well, he lived out in the middle of that campground, so I don't know. And another thing about that campground is they have a huge pond, ducks, geese, all kinds of stuff on the backside of it. So there was another source of food there.
Yeah.
So, yes, I'm going to the cheat sheet.
That's fine.
If they was ducks and eggs, I mean, how many eggs and things went missing that you didn't even know that it was getting?
That's kind of what I was thinking too.
I know. We just thought of this since we talked to you. When my brother died unexpectedly in 2017, Mom got sick and we had to move in with her because she had open heart surgery. We left our chickens and our turkeys at home, and we were going over to take care of them, if not every day, every other day. And we went over one day and something had let all of our turkeys out. They were running around the yard. And they were in, a good sized coop that we had bought and put together for them. Now they weren't laying, but they were out running the yard. We had 2 toms and 5 hens. We managed to get them all rounded up and back in it. Then we noticed, like a week or 2 later, we'd go over to gather eggs and we had no eggs. The eggs were gone. And we were getting 13, 14 eggs a day. And our neighbor had a camera set on the driveway, and she said nobody was going down to the house. She said, there's nobody going to your house. You have nobody going down there messing with your chickens.
Not from the road.
Right.
But
So
from the woods, probably.
we went several weeks with no eggs, didn't get an egg. Then we went over one day, and all of our chickens was running all over the yard. Well, fortunately, Jeffrey had made them pets, so he managed to get them all rounded up and back in the pen.
When I whistle, they
They would all come.
They all come.
Then again, maybe a week later, we go over, chickens all over the place again. And I think then we were missing 2. We were from 11 down to 8.
Yes.
Or 13 down to 11 first, and then 11 down to 8. So when we hit 8, we had a rolling coop that Billy had built. We said, okay, that's it. We're taking them to Mom because something's happened into the chickens. We weren't getting any eggs. There was no point in us leaving them there. So I guess we moved to Mom's in July. So in October, we moved them.
Whenever you found the turkeys out and the chickens out, was the pen open?
Yeah, the door of the pen was open.
Yes.
The only kind of latch on this particular coop was one of those little bolt slide latches.
Yeah.
And that was open, and they were out running.
Wait, so a bolt slide latch? You mean like a sliding bolt, like where you got to lift it up, go sideways, and then it goes down?
Yeah, that's how those work.
Yes.
You can lock it, or you can just leave it. It'll close, but you don't have to push it up to lock it. Well, Jeffrey's bad about not locking them.
Okay.
You're
talking about where it goes through the other little piece.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
The little slide latch.
But something has to lift it up, move it over, and let it down,
Yes.
right?
Well, he just has to move it because he didn't. It was swinging down. It was still closed. He just didn't have it in the little lock position.
Okay.
Oh, my sister was down, not up.
On those, it wasn't. You had to pull it up and push it over because it was those that we got from Tractor Supply. It was a different one. And so it would just be hanging there. So it just had to be slid and the door would swing open. And it had one of those doors that was about 24 inches high.
So if it wasn't locked, it's possible something could have knocked it over. But to have it happen several times, I mean, that's, you got to think about that. And then, so you ended up missing 4 to 5 chickens?
13 to 11, 11 to 8. And when we hit 8, we moved them.
Okay.
And we wound up never finding one of our hen turkeys. They got out again, and we never found her. So when we moved the turkeys over, we went from the 2 toms. I think we only had 5 when we moved them. So that meant another one had to be gone.
Is this all inside the fenced-in area, or is this?
We didn't have a fence then. We did not have a fence then. We did not put the fence up until 2019. The spring of 2019.
And then we're going to talk about the fence later, and y'all, that's interesting.
And then we had Mom got sick and we stayed over there. We didn't, we just go pick the mail up and check on the house. So we don't really know, what went on other than the little incident with the chickens and the turkeys. We moved home then in winter, spring of 2019. We were home, wasn't it? Well, yeah, something like that is when we moved in. We remodeled and moved in, and we had the fence put up. We have 2 gates to go in, so that like if somebody brings in a trailer, they can loop around and get out pretty easy. The fence is right at 6 feet tall with strands of barbed wire around the top.
Yes.
Barbed wire around the top of it.
And at the bottom.
Y'all in a prison compound.
We're trying to keep 2 dogs in the fence so they don't bother everybody else.
Oh, okay.
We have neighbors that their dogs can come through their business in your yard, but they don't want your dogs in their yard. And yes, I said that out loud. In March, April of, it had to been, in 20 after we moved home, is when I was painting ceramics in my den, and it was raining, and Jeffrey saw somebody trying to get in the ceramic shop. And it was solid black, and he opens the door and yelled, "What are you doing?" And it turned and went between the building that you asked about before, the Yoder building, and the building that we built. It ran between those. He went out there to make sure the building was still secure. And I have the drawing, but you also have it on something of yours. But Jeffrey's phone got dropped. He took a picture of it, and it was a wet footprint. It measured 11.5 inches long from the toe to the heel and 6.5 inches wide across the heel. It was on the cement steps. We have figured roughly that from the ground to the top of the door, 6 to 6.5 feet. He said the head was above the door. But can you see it? That's kind of the shape. It's an odd shape.
Well, like you said, it almost looks like. How did you get in here? It almost looks like the toes are curled, or, like you pointed out, maybe it's a hand. But if it's a hand, it's a really large hand. If it's a hand, hold on one sec. My dog, y'all, Misty, carry on. My dogs broke in, and I think they got to use the bathroom. Give me one moment.
What?
Give me water. I'll be right back.
Okay. Well, Spencer's not here, so you just keep reading your notes. Don't listen to him.
And that occurred, that was spring. And then in the summer, I cut the grass. I have a 0 turn. There was something. Now we have the fence up, mind you, so there's no livestock getting in the yard, and we have dogs, but a little dachshund and the boxer. I went around the corner behind the shop cutting, and I hit a pile of scat that was big enough that my lawnmower slid. And it had berry seeds. You could just see all kinds of seeds and different things in it.
And you don't have no bears or anything like that you noticed around there.
Well, the fence is up too.
Yeah.
So, I was shocked that I hit something and I slid and I did take a picture of it, and for some reason I deleted it because I thought, nobody wants to see that. But it had, like maybe the seeds out, little tiny little seeds out of blueberries or blackberries, those kind of seeds. It was all in it. So I wondered, like I said, not everything's Bigfoot, but it wasn't one of the dogs, that was for sure. It's not a deer.
You wouldn't think so with that many berries and things. And you was talking about there being the blackberries and honeysuckle and all that. If you've got all that growing right there together, you've probably got elderberry and
I do too. I have elderberry planted. I have elderberry planted all over my yard.
Yeah.
And see, we have peach trees. I've got 4 peach trees. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 apple trees. 3 fig trees. I have plenty of produce.
Well, you know,
But that was a mass about the, okay, I hate to use this. If people know anything about cows, it's about like a huge cow splat that I ran through and slid through, I should say. So,
you just answered that
and
question.
what
Apparently it was a cow patty.
that's
Yeah.
what it, you know, only it wasn't, it was kind of a, it was weird color, orangey and different, what normal, all one color. Let's just put it that way. Yes, I inspected. I was fascinated. I was like, what have I hit? So, and then I found the stumps that had been dug into. Now I know raccoons will dig into them, but this was like 4 feet up off the ground, 3 or 4 feet off the ground, and it was 4 and 5 inches deep into the stump. We had mushrooms. I don't know what kind they are, growing on these old stumps, like where they cut the trees and left the stumps. But these were down next to the woods. Is where I found these dug out at.
Are you saying that you think they dug out the mushrooms?
I don't know what if they were going for grubs or what. I mean, it could have been another animal. I'm just saying I found those.
Okay.
Like I said, not everything's Bigfoot. I'm just mentioning
Right. No,
it's
it's
3 or 4 feet up off the ground. So
it's good. It's good that you do that. We don't. Nobody wants to convince everyone that everything is Bigfoot, but the more details, the more that people can compare to stuff they've experienced and everything, and maybe it adds up to something at the end.
now we're kind of getting to where I was on the phone with Greg. This is what happened recently, I guess. I told you we fenced a property in 19, and that was in September when he saw the figure trying to get the ceramic shop.
Was the ceramic
March,
shop?
April.
Was the ceramic shop inside the fencing?
Yes.
Okay.
The fence is on our property line all the way around it.
Okay.
We
So
set the fence
all of the buildings are inside the fencing,
inside.
right?
Everything is right.
All right.
And then another thing is the guy that did some of our landscape. Well, he tried to clean up where the logger, the previous logger, had left us in a mess. You know, when he cut the woods back. Basically, what he did is he came in and he took what he could sell, what was of value, and left everything else just destroyed. So I had to get another guy come in with a skid steer and other pieces of equipment. And he kind of pushed up a big burn pile around a couple of the biggest stumps that was left. And in that, I didn't realize that he pushed up some top rail from an old fence that we had in our backyard, you know, around for the dogs. And it was all on the ground, laying flat on the ground. Now we have a piece that something has pulled out and it's standing about 10, 12 feet up in the air. I mean, it's bent up out of the ground. It's now sticking up. Something's gotten a hold of it and pulled it up.
Well, you've also had fencing that has been bent, but we'll get there.
Oh, yeah. And then now to November of this past year, Jeffrey and I had been out late, went to the store, we came in, and I park at the north end of by our den, and we parked. Now, around this pile, it hasn't been burned off in a couple of years. There's elderberries, there's maypops. And I had found, Jeffrey had wanted to know what a maypop was. And, you know, I'm sure Misty knows, and you probably do too. They're about that big. They're green. When they're ripe, you can eat them.
Flower fruit.
Passion flower, right. Well, we found a vine or a couple vines going up some elderberry trees, bushes that had become trees, literally. And there was about 50, 65 or so maypops all over. It was a good 4 or 5 foot area. I know you do, but you didn't get a chance. And when we drove in, I just looked down in that direction, and there was from like shoulders up, the back side of one, and he was at the maypops where they were growing. And I said, Jeffrey, be quiet, go in the house, don't say a word, don't let the dogs out till we know he's gone. And I always say he, I don't know if it's a he or she, but I said, don't let the dogs out till we know he's gone. Now, I'll preface that by saying that a couple weeks before that, our dogs were running all over the place. They've been running the wood line. They would not go down in the woods. The dachshund's bad to chase rabbits off down in the woods. And we
Not
had
anymore.
noticed they were not going down in the woods. They were just running the edge and barking. Then back to this, we watched, and Jeffrey would go back to the window in the back room and look out. Probably 15, 20 minutes. He checked. And
He's
there
still
was
there.
It was there, and finally he was gone. I didn't go that day. I went on the Saturday after because a friend of mine had wanted some of the maypops to get seeds from. There was 2 rotten ones on the ground and a half rotten one hanging up in the tree and a shriveled up one. That thing had cleaned up all of our maypops.
Who was it that
One of them.
we just had somebody on here that showed a picture? I cannot remember who it was that had a picture of a maypop where the bite out of it was 3/4 as wide.
That was a hedge apple.
Oh, was it a hedge apple? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hey, also,
But
real
the funny
quick,
thing about that is they're all medicinal, supposedly. I'm not claiming nothing on the maypop or the
but
hedge apples. I'm just saying.
you wouldn't you
Makes
wouldn't
you
think
wonder
that they
too.
would,
That's why a lot of that stuff gets ate.
you wouldn't think that they would eat 50 of them for medicinal.
Yeah, but really, I mean,
No.
Right.
we've been
I'm just
watching them
saying,
for a couple of weeks for them to ripen, so it was about time for them to be ripe enough for him to taste it. But they were gone.
Yeah.
It was cleaned up.
Do they eat? Have you noticed them eating the blooms, or like just pulling whole parts of the vines and eating the vines?
It's just the fruit that was gone. The vine's still hanging there. And like I said, there was a couple rotten ones on the ground, and the dry one that was kind of half rotten, half dried up, hanging in way up, kind of leaning, hanging kind of in. There was one that was smaller that was still there because we took a stick and tried to knock it down for her to get it for seeds. But they were gone just that quick. He got all of them.
Robbie,
Even if the bugs get them, the holes are still there. The skin.
Robbie, feel free to post a link for your book in the chat or on our page, by the way. Pretty please. Robbie just released a book and everybody should check it out. But anyway, sorry to interrupt, Sandy.
That's okay. So, once it was clear, then we let the dogs out. And then this is where Greg might want to rejoin us. I don't know, because I call Greg freaking out.
I'll let Greg sit here
Okay.
until it's my turn again.
Okay. Sir Greg says he'll be back shortly.
Normally it's squirrel playing hooky, but anyway, go ahead and tell about
I
it.
have to keep going out. My internet's cutting off. This is the only way I can make it work.
Yeah.
Well, I won't say, but we have good
I can't hear her
internet.
talking.
We have a cell phone company that's causing our internet to have problems. Because
Well,
we're
I
not
don't know
supposed
what it is if you're talking or whatever. I can't even hear what you're like that. See, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I'm so far behind lagging.
So
Did Jeffrey see the one that was out there with the maypops? Jeff, did you get a look at it?
It looked like the same thing was at the shop.
solid black.
Solid black.
How big do you think it was?
Well, we talked about our yard slopes. It used to be a terraced pasture,
Yeah.
had terrace rows. So the back parts, the front's flat, but the back, goes off. So probably where it's at, we figure 7.5 feet roughly.
How wide
From
do
what we can see.
you think it was? 3 foot, 4 foot
Oh
wide?
yeah. Definitely. He's fixing to move, Greg. You come back over here. If you...
Me, I'll be back in just a second. Just let Jeff hang out for one more minute.
Okay.
He puts our pick on me.
I'm not picking on Missy.
Well, keep pressure from.
You need to. Everybody needs to pick on Misty.
We told you
You're
that Jeffrey thinks Missy's the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Yeah, that's what
They
everybody
want to
thinks.
get back to Missy.
They don't know her.
We're buddies, ain't we, Jeffrey?
Yes, we are. We met up there
At Holland.
at Holland, so we got off a good start. So
That's right.
He helped her cook.
I helped her
He
cook.
did.
So
He's a good cook. He's a good helper.
I wish I could say about the chickens, but I have to wait.
Well,
You know, and something you brought up, Spencer, that you haven't yet, is Jeffrey's autistic.
yes, Jeffrey's autistic, and it goes into, do you think, well, hold on though. They were coming around your house whenever you were 13 years old. So, and if they were specifically coming whenever you were there, if other people in your family didn't see them, you know,
Okay.
are they attracted to redheaded girls? Are they
But
attracted
another
to
thing, we're all mature adults here. I had also started at that time
right?
my cycle.
I-
Just
I was thinking that. The thing is, here's the thing, people. If we point out stuff like that, if we point out stuff like, could it be about a woman's cycle? Could it be about a kid being autistic? You're immediately going to go to that, and you're probably going to overlook some of the other stuff. So I'm not saying that that's not part of it. Hey, Doc,
I can't see.
I have to actually. I can't see. That's why I had to get close up to actually read.
I wonder that too. But do we know? Does anybody know? You would be better off.
I'll get it.
In my opinion,
That first.
you would be better off not thinking of boogers as like Harry and the Hendersons, warm, friendly, forest people. You would be better off not fearing that they're going to snatch you as soon as you walk in the woods. Same thing with the dog man. If dog man looks similar to what you think of as like a werewolf, you automatically assume it's out there running around killing a bunch of people. If that was the case, people would be missing all the time. The autism thing, though, I will say there's a large coincidence with boogers around autistic people. Then again, autism is on the rise right now. So I don't know which way to read that. Anyway, so now go ahead.
Well, there was 3 women in that same house too. You know.
We talked about that pretty much in detail on the first time that you were on there. And I do think, I will openly admit, I think boogers are more apt to come up to females than men. Whether that be from men hunting, whether it's a testosterone thing, I don't know. The boogers are more apt to come up to kids and babies and women than men. Go figure that any way you want to.
Spencer, that's one thing. I mean, that's one thing that the late great Bill White, Tal Bronco, that's one thing he really stressed with me. Like, because Bill, I made him very aware that Wanda went hunting with me a lot. She hunts a lot. She hunts way more than most men. And Bill really cautioned me about being really cautious about her going in the woods. And if she was on her cycle or approaching her cycle or whatever, about me staying really close to her and not letting her go by herself. And because Bill swore that these things would absolutely get hot and bothered by a woman, just the pheromones or whatever.
There was a lot of superstition 100 years ago, 200 years ago about not to let a woman go hunting whenever she was on her cycle because the game could smell it and they wouldn't come to you while you were hunting. All I'm saying, it's good stuff to think about. It's good stuff to keep in mind. Nobody knows if it's a fact. And until you hear all of the pieces of somebody's story, I don't think you should get caught up on one little section of it. Otherwise, you're liable to overlook some of the more obvious stuff. Here, was the boogers digging for worms in that worm raising bed, or were they digging for the chicken food that was put on top there for the worms? They can go out in the woods and get worms. They can't go out in the woods and get chicken feed. Nobody knows. There are no experts in this field. Don't jump to a conclusion. It's like Sherlock Holmes. Don't just let the situation go and weigh it all. Now, talk about, because this is where we get good and this is where we get into the modern stuff. Talk about whenever you call Greg about the stuff that's happening now.
And there's one other thing I forgot, and I'm going to tell you. Late one night, I was sitting in the car. Jeffrey's autistic and Billy has autistic tendencies. And every once in a while, I can't take it. I go sit outside. So I went out and sat in the car. I'm just going to tell you, it's either go out and get a break from it or kill them. One of the, sorry, that's how it is. I don't drink and I don't use any other substances. So it's go outside, listen to the radio, read my Bible, whatever I got to do to get a break. So I'm sitting out there late and I look up. You know, you just get a feeling to look up. And at the edge of the lights, and I'm sorry, I talk with my hands. I apologize before for it, but that's just life.
If you accidentally reach too far and hit Greg, that'd be great TV. Go ahead. Carry on.
Okay. I already rubbed elbows with him a while ago. But anyway, the edge of the lights, because we now have lights around the house. There's one walking, but it's not the black one.
You told me this. Yeah.
It's gray. And all I see is its backside and its head. From where I'm at, I'm not going to even venture to guess how tall it is. But it looked to be pretty broad. But I told Greg, the interesting thing to me is you could see the gray, the long gray hair, but there was tufts. I would say softball, baseball size tufts of white hair sticking out in different places across its back. So, and I watched it go across.
My goats look like that right now.
Maybe it's what?
I said maybe it's shedding. My goats look like that right now, where they had their winter fur.
Yeah.
And now that it's coming on spring, that they'll take their horns and dig, and they'll have just big clumps of hair like that, just white hair.
Balls of white.
Just hair. You know what I mean? Like it's like dirt.
What?
I don't know.
What time of year was it?
That again would have been spring because it was raining. It was kind of rainy weather. It'd been drizzling.
Yeah. Where's Greg at? Get Greg back here because
run back to the kitchen for a second. I know Jeffrey's up in there probably trying to eat something.
This is a good point, and I want to get Greg's opinion on it because just like Greg,
There you go.
we're on here doing a YouTube show trying to tell people, hey, things have been around your property for 20 years. And everybody is going to go, well, the people that are new to the subject or the people that have no real experience are going to go, oh my gosh, 20 years you've been living with them. Why ain't you got the greatest pictures and the videos? What? Hold on. We're going to get there. But for y'all's information, she got a couple pictures. They're hard to see. Greg.
Yes, sir.
You've been living with these things like her. Before we go any further, before we go into the stuff that's happened now, let's stop and make a real big point on the whole Bigfoot subject. Do y'all understand? She's covering 20 years of random experience. It's not like it happens every day. She's covering 20 years of what has happened on that property. Greg lives right there. Greg had experiences before he had the man cave and everything. Gosh, y'all, we are a horrible Bigfoot show. Why do our guests never have pictures of boogers? What are y'all doing? You live there with the boogers. Why do we not have high definition video footage of the boogers? Somebody please explain to me. What are you thinking when you see one?
Well, my deal is, dude, it's like you can walk around with a camera all day long and be ready to take a picture. But it's like you're trying to catch a picture of somebody the very instance that out of the blue they sneeze. I mean, you walk around with that camera and you're going to eventually be like, well, I ain't going to see nothing. And you're not walking around everywhere you go like this. And, it's all I see, man. And I guess for me, once I realized what they were and I've seen them and all these hundreds of encounters I've had from bluff charge and, them follow me out, beating on my walls, I don't really care if anybody believes it.
Well, Greg can tell you, I could have took one, a perfectly good one, and that's when the stupid phone wouldn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't anything get it to take a picture.
Don't go into the electronics failing. We ain't got no proof of that neither, except for every person that goes out and actually deals with these things realize that the electronics fail. But anyway,
the redhead operating it myself.
For the first year, whenever I moved here and I saw signs of them around here, I knew that they didn't live here, but they moved through here. I saw every time I went out, I had my cell phone in my pocket and I had it facing out and I had it recording, and I was taking GoPros and I was taking the voice recorders out. I would get voice recordings and I would find like tracks, but I got so tired of constantly charging my phone and constantly having my phone on me and the GoPros and recharging those. Finally, I just gave up on it because you cannot do it every minute of every day. No. Is my point.
Look, that's what I tell people. Look, I've been here kind of basically ground zero for 25 years of dealing with them. And I've only seen 4 that I saw really good. That would have been like, I'm talking about would have blown Patterson Gimlin out of the water 4 times. Now, I've seen other times that I'd get a glimpse of something, go from tree to tree, or I'd see a flash of something. I mean, that we're talking about, it would have been a red circle moment. Now, I've had those, but 4 times in basically 25 years that I've actually seen them and seen them really good. They were one of them I watched it run through the timber, but the other 3 were wide open, right there in front of me, nothing between me and them but air. And your brain is like, it's like a vehicle. It like gets knocked out of gear and you're stomping the gas trying to go up a hill and you don't realize why it's not working.
Well, it takes you 30 seconds of going, what am I looking at? And at that point, it's already moving. It's already gone. Your first thought is, oh, there's something blurry over there. Let me get my phone. Your first thought is, what is that? And you're looking at it and trying to understand what it is. But anyway.
Blob squatches.
Yeah, well, there's enough blob squatches out there to keep everybody entertained. We don't need to add to that.
Let's drop back on this, like we was talking about the taking a picture. Y'all, even look, I know Spencer, I know you've seen it. I know Misty's seen it. I've seen it. You can be looking at a footprint that is absolutely phenomenal. You're looking at it, you can absolutely see the dermal ridges.
Details. Yeah.
Dude, the first footprint that I ever saw, it was in hard, compacted, wet sand. Now, this stuff was near like concrete, but out in front of where the toes were, and the toes were gloriously displayed in me looking at it with my eyes. You could see where the toenails out in front of where the toe ended. It looked like a blade had, I don't mean like a claw, but it was like a giant human toenail that was like, this wide, had actually stuck into the sand, looked like you just stuck a knife blade and pulled it out. And it like curled the sand up with the toenail. And even the little bitty tiny beads of sand that flipped out were still wet. They weren't even dry. This track was not very old at all. But dude, I took a whole, this was before cell phones and digital cameras, and I burned up through a whole packet. What was there, 10, 12 pictures on a Polaroid? I took every angle that I could, straight down, sideways. And I was sitting there, you know how we used to do, shake the thing and blow on them and shake them. And I would look at it and I'd go, damn it. I'd put that in my pocket and I'd take another one.
Yes.
And y'all, and I could not make it. There was nothing that I could do to make that picture where it was what I was seeing.
The pictures don't do justice. The audio recordings don't do justice. I will say, if you find a really good track, I'm not telling you that you should cast a track, but a casting is going to give you an overall representation that you can show to people later. One of the best things I have seen is spraying a track with spray paint, because it will actually show the depth whenever you take a picture of it. So if you have a can of black spray paint, but you're going to ruin a lot of the fine detail. Some people talk about, whenever you're doing castings, to spray the track with hairspray before you pour the plaster mix or whatever. But the point being, taking a picture does not do it justice. Taking a picture of a booger that's 50 yards away with your cell phone, if it's in the tree line, whenever anybody tries to zoom in, it becomes pixelated. You don't see the detail. The best we can do is show contrast and shadows and everything to really make it kind of stand out, and you can see that there's something there, but it's not the same as seeing it with your own eyes. And that's if you're lucky enough to get the phone out in time, you know what you're looking at, and you take a picture of it. It's very damn difficult, y'all. Anyway, all right, Sandra, what'd you call Greg about?
Okay, right before, on the 14th of January this year, I went out in the yard, was getting ready to go somewhere, and we had 3 distinct whoops, the typical what you hear recording whoops. Okay, and Billy had heard them the night before and not mentioned it. He said it scared him and he just didn't say anything. But he said it sounded like it was coming down from toward the creek. Then on the 15th at 11:48, I heard an odd noise outside. And we have cameras now that go off the different corners of the house. And I just started going from camera to camera to see what I could see. Well, I looked at the end of the house and I looked to the next one, the camera, and daggone, just at the right time, he stepped out from behind shrubs, privets, and 2 trees. Just stepped out. Well, that's when I'm like, I got to get a picture of this, but of course I couldn't. And I freaked. He was huge. I mean, that's the only way to say it. I just freaked out. He stepped out. I saw the side profile, and then he turned and stepped back into, he was like right at the edge of the tree line, turned and stepped back into the trees. Well, did I call you first? I think I turned around and called.
Yeah, I think you texted me to start with.
And so,
yeah,
I texted Greg and then I called him. He was standing there, and you could see his head tilt from where I was at, watching him on the Ring camera, and he was reaching down with his right arm to something. I told Greg, I said, he's doing something with his right arm. I can't tell what it is. And well, then it dawned on me that there's a couple down trees there in that area. And I said, maybe he's picking something, maybe there's something on those trees. Well, I kept watching him. And I actually got a couple of, I knew what I was looking at with, from my camera off the Ring camera system, so that I knew that there was this big black object standing there, another blob squatch. But I knew, and I watched him, and I talked to Greg We talked close to an hour
Oh yeah, at least if not more.
before he finally moved further down to where I couldn't see him. He was obstructing a tree, and when he finally moved past it, then I told Greg, I said, he's gone, he's out of sight. I can't see him. But I kept watching him. And Greg would say, just stay calm, you're in the house, don't freak out. You know, he doesn't know you're watching him. Just don't worry about it, but just watch it. Watch what he's doing. He said, you're seeing what people would kill to see in their lifetime. You're seeing this whole thing play out before you. But he kept, about every 5 minutes or so, he would make a, I did it better that night. My throat's not right. Kind of a grunt huff.
Mhm.
I don't know any other way to describe it. But he would make that sound, and it picked it up distinctly on the camera, you know, the system. Because I turned the speakers on so I could hear. And I stayed quiet because, you know, it transfers the noise from the house outside. I was the only one that was watching it in there. But I carried and let Billy and Jeffrey real quick before I called Greg to see him standing there, so that Billy got to see it. But that's more like what, but really loud. About every 5-6 minutes, he would do that until he disappeared and went down in the woods. Well, I contacted you, and Billy and I went down and we measured that tree. And where his head came out on those two little trees that kind of twist together was 8 feet tall. It was 8 feet up. And we couldn't get in to where he was standing because of the blackberry briars that were right there. But we got close enough that we could see there's like 3 trails that came in. The one behind where he walked in from. Then there was one that angled off to the west from there. And then another one that he had walked down, and it was leaf litter and, you know, all the stuff. So there's no way to see a footprint. It was just compacted down. Walked down the length of where those 2 trees were laid together towards that tree. And then that trail went around that tree on down towards the creek. But it was like 3 game trails, I guess you'd call them, converged right there at that particular spot. And then we that was the next day that we walked down there and measured the height and checked out those trails. And the 2 trees are like really big trees, but I didn't, honestly, from where I was standing, I couldn't see like where he dug into them or anything. But there's a lot of these grayish, brownish colored mushrooms growing on the outside of the stuff. I don't know. They have the same looking pattern as the hen and chickens. Isn't that what they're called?
Yeah.
But it's not those.
Hen of the woods.
It's just those, I just call them a common mushroom when stuff's decayed. That's along those. So I was wondering if maybe he was pulling those off of that.
Yeah, she kept telling me. She said he's bending over. I don't know what he's doing. He's bending over.
Leaning to the right.
Yeah, he like she was like he's bending up. He's going. He's bending over again. I don't know what he's doing. Well, he stood back up now, and he's like was kind of milling in one little area, and then he finally continued on. And I mean, I'm getting play by play, and I'm trying to imagine, and I'm just like pleading with her, like, you know, you can't get a picture. She's like, no, I can't. All I can do is look at it on the phone. All I can do is look at it on the phone. And y'all look, she's not thinking about it, and I'm listening to all this, and I'm like, oh my God.
I got screenshot.
Yeah, I'm like, you know, screenshot, do something. And I'm thinking, we know screenshots are okay, but with a screenshot, you're not like a video where you're seeing this image move and it's making it really show. And then it finally dawns on me after the fact. I'm like, oh my God. If she's looking at it on her phone, if she had got Jeffrey's phone or her husband's phone, flipped her to video and just video that her phone screen. So it, you know, you're videoing what you're seeing. But look, this is after it's said and done. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
I'm
have
fascinated and terrified at the same time. And poor Greg's hanging here like, okay, just stay calm.
Yeah.
Don't go out there, Sandra. Don't go out there.
Look, I would have had to call, if that'd been Misty, I would have had to call, well, no, I couldn't call Sherry because her and Donna had went out there with her. I'd have had to like bribe JR to like kneecap Misty. She'd been diving out the window. Come here, Mr. Booger Man. I've got
He
cookies.
wouldn't have come out there. He'd have let me get got. He'd have been like, I ain't going out there.
Yeah,
Your cookies.
Crazy.
they but yeah, y'all, I'm telling you, look, I sit there and listen to this play by play. You know, I'm 20 miles away. There's really nothing I can do. And you know, I'm sitting there going, oh my gosh. And I'm just going, if she had this videoed, if she could just hit record on her phone and recorded that, it would have been unreal, I'm sure, because you know,
Greg Alden was like, Sandra just seen one, and she's got so much going on at her house right now.
When you said that, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Can I please just get a picture of this? And I was sitting there trying to do a screenshot because it would have gotten a good one then. The very first screenshot would have been a good one. And I couldn't get that stupid screenshot on this Android to work for anything in the world. I was ready to throw the phone across the room if it wasn't for the fact that I was watching the booger on it.
And y'all, I mean, this is what I want people to realize. I mean,
I couldn't get mine to work the other night either whenever I was trying to record.
yeah, exactly. But y'all, I mean, this is what I want people to realize. It ain't like she's driving down the road and just see something across the field. Sandra's in her own home where you're supposed to feel safe, and you're looking at your security camera, and it ain't some just thug out trying to steal a bicycle. You're looking at a monster come off the pages of a cryptid novel, and then some are going to standing in your yard. That changes everything. That's what I try to explain to people. When you're at your supposed to be your safe space, and then you realize that thing's right through this. I mean, think about it. She's what, 60 feet, maybe 70?
Well, about 75, 80 feet from where I was sitting to where he was standing.
Yeah, and she's sitting here watching this thing on this camera, going, you know, that's right here. This is my yard. That thing's out here. Y'all, that's a whole lot of stuff to unbox.
And then I'm like, Greg, do I need to get somebody to go check my fence line? Has he pushed my fence down? He said, Sandra, at that height, he probably just stepped over.
Yeah, I'm like, look, ain't nothing in that fence worth going down there prodding him about.
Yes.
So I'm freaking out over the fence, and he's like, you're thinking of the fence. This is after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, don't worry about your fence. Well, it didn't end there, though. That's the interesting thing. So then what was it? A couple days later, I go out into the house, and I get a good whoops. Now, I've decided already that this is a different one, okay, from what we've been seeing. I really do think it's a different one. So then on the 31st or the 1st of February, I'm sitting there, and I just get a feeling I need to look at my cameras. So I start checking the cameras again. First, I check the chicken coop, and I looked at the end camera, which we do now. We did not have a security light at the end of the house. It had blown out, and Billy hadn't replaced it. So it was dark there. I checked the next one. What do I see? I see a deer head. I don't mean, it's not a deer like down on the ground. It's like a deer up in the air. The head. Eyes open, and it flops to the left. And I thought, well, it's on top of something. And then it flops to the right. Then it flops back to the left. This is pretty fast that it's flopping. And I can see the eyes open, the eye on one side of it open, and its ears. And it flops about 5 times. And I realized that booger's snapping the neck of a deer. It's got to be slinging it like that. It's slinging it over its head. And then the next thing I see is it's gone. It goes down one of those trails. But I actually saw the deer. The only thing I can say is I saw a deer killed.
One of those pictures that you sent me, one of the pictures that she screenshotted or whatever, that one, I mean, that thing, the best I can tell you, and look, I'm not much on looking at pictures and trying to cipher it out, because to me, pictures are so hard. There's too much paranoia. But part of that she had, to me, I saw something that looked upright and dark, and it looked, to me, what I was saying, it looked like a deer on its shoulder. It looks like it's toting something. I mean, I don't know.
But it was so fast, Spencer. I mean, it was that, you were saying go down and see if there's hair on the tree. But it was that's what I was trying to tell Greg, and I tried to get to across to you. It didn't happen 8 feet down in the woods. It happened right there where he stepped out, and it was clear as a bell.
And like what Greg was saying, please understand what she's talking about is looking at something that's right there at her house. It's different. If a booger is right outside your front door and grabs a deer and is whipping it back and forth, breaking its neck right there, right outside your door, 8 feet away, you're not inclined to go outside and try to take a picture of it.
Well, no. With that happening, I wasn't about to open the door and go, "Hey, what are you doing to the deer?"
No kidding. No kidding. But so you never did you ever look and see, was there any hair on the tree?
No. Well, I knew where he was at. There was no point. It wasn't hitting the tree. You could see it was just slinging it hard enough. I think it just snapped its neck because it was just bam, 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 and he gone.
If that is the case, that's an interesting thing for everybody to keep in mind. If they snatched up a deer and just whipped it back and forth hard enough to break its spine, its neck, its spine, that's an interesting thing for everybody to keep in mind, because I've heard a bunch of people, I've actually seen hair up in a tree where either a deer or a hog was hit up in a tree 8 feet off the ground. But that right there, the whipping it thing, that's interesting.
I could see its ears and eyes and nose as clear as I could see that deer mount that Greg's got on the wall. I mean, it just blew me away.
How high was the camera? How high is the camera off the ground?
It's on the eave. So that would be 7.5 feet to 8. No, I'll be more than that, 10 feet.
10, 12 feet probably.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were seeing the eyes and everything right there at the camera level?
Now, and keep in mind that it slopes down towards the woods. So, there was still tree above it in the camera view, but it was it was clear. I just could not believe.
Oh, when I was talking to her, she was.
I was freaking out.
I mean, look, and understandably, I see why.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, if they can do that to a deer, see, I told Greg, I said, "Oh God, I hope it's not the doe that brings her babies in our yard every spring."
Yes.
But
100%.
she's a pretty good size. She's a pretty good sized doe. I didn't see antlers on it. I just saw the ears, her eye, her head, the neck, probably the what do you call it, the shoulder area. I could see some of that initially, because when I first saw it sticking up, I thought, well, it's something. Why is that deer up in the air? It's on top of something's head. But then that's when the whipping action took off.
What did you
The back
find
and forth.
in Queens Ferry?
So, I mean, if you can do that to a 180-pound deer, imagine what it can do to a human.
You're in Alabama. You ain't got no 180-pound deer. You're in Alabama. Calm down.
Oh yeah. Well, that buck.
She's a big, pretty doe that we had come in our yard.
That big buck I got right over there weighed 214. So I mean, look, a big full doe here, probably 155, 160 pounds.
Don't lie, Greg. Don't lie.
Be close.
And then it didn't end with that one. This has been an exciting year. Then on the 4th was a Tuesday night. Billy comes in. He's supposed to pick up something for us for dinner, and he got aggravated and came home without it. And we decided to go have Mexican. So we leave the house about 7:20. We got back to the house about 8:40. Well, he took off in the house, and Jeffrey and I are just meandering around the vehicle to go in, and I'd had gravel delivered, and there was a pile about 2.5 feet high there at the end of where we parked. And I looked down and I said, "Jeffrey, look, there is a footprint in the fresh pile of gravel. A big footprint. I play on words, but I'm talking a big footprint." And then the odor hits us. Oh my God. It stunk so bad. And again, poor Greg, he sees the phone ring. He says, Sandra, what's going on now? Anyway, I said, Greg, it smells so bad. It smelled, and y'all forgive me, but I'm going to describe it. It's like if you've ever walked into a man's bathroom in a gas station that hasn't, or any bathroom, but a man's bathroom that hasn't been flushed in 5 or 6 days and it's hot weather. It's that gut-wrenching, horrible urine smell. It was horrible.
So,
well, then off to the side, there is a stream in the gravel. A stream, like where a man had peed and looped it around and probably 4 feet long, going towards my deck. I get stood in the gravel pile, peed that towards my ramp, and on the other side of the pile, there was a left footprint that had kind of slid in the gravel. Well, it was dark. It was 8:45 by then. I took my shoe off. I had on like Croc shoes. They measured 12 inches long. It was depressed. The footprint, the right footprint, was about that far down in the gravel pile. And I laid the Croc, my heel of my Croc, on the heel of it. And you could see the toe impression past it about 3.5 inches, 4 inches maybe. And took a picture of it for reference. And we took 2 or 3 shots, one without it, and then Jeffrey kind of lit it from the side, and you really couldn't see that much. But where we were at, you could see from the edge of the grass across to that point, like heel impressions in the fresh gravel, but you really couldn't see any more toe detail. But the toe detail was in those, or the impression. I sent you pictures of that. You saw that.
the depth. Yeah.
Jeffrey had put out a new chicken in with our other ones. He had one old enough to go out, and that chicken was gone the next day. The new chicken. Just the little one. Nowhere in the coop. No signs of feathers anywhere around. Our chicken gone. That little one.
Is that when you was talking about you? One of them you told me that when he looked, the latch had been undone, the chicken was gone, and it was latched.
Yes, it was undone. That's what he said. It was undone, slid, chicken gone, and it was slid back. We don't have kids in the neighborhood. Jeffrey's, he's 30 years old with autism. He's the kid. There's no kids in our neighborhood. There's nobody else comes around. My mother-in-law watches the yard like a hawk, except she can't see that well at night. So any of this stuff going on,
Right. You wouldn't know about it.
yeah.
And the thing about one thing that a lot of y'all out there, I know it's going to be hard for y'all to picture this, but Jeffrey, right here, that was just sitting here, he is what, 6'3", 4"?
He's 5'11". He is. We're the same height.
He looks like he's taller.
I know, he's 5'11".
He's a big boy. He's a big boy. I mean, big dude. So
Hey,
yeah.
since y'all, hey, just real quick, Greg, how many?
Yeah.
In your experience, in your opinion, since you started looking into the booger thing, how many booger encounters are in between your place and her place, and specifically the area that she's at? How, just off the top of your head, how many do you know about over the years?
Dozens and dozens. Dozens and dozens. Matter of fact, about halfway between where we're sitting now and where she lives, there's some of the encounters. It's almost, if you drew a straight line and then went south just a couple of miles, about halfway, you can research there's a family that had dealings with these things, kind of like what I've had. Their families had dealings with these things for probably closer to 50 years. And if y'all ever go back and can find the encounter where one of the daughters And here again, it goes back to a chicken farm. The daughter was she was young and she was in the chicken house, and one of these things came in the chicken house with her, and she was kind of like middle ways, and this thing started approaching her. It came and got closer and came up to her, and she just freaked out, and the thing grabbed her on the arm.
Wasn't it gibbering or making some
Yeah,
kind of noise?
it was gibbering like it was trying to communicate with her, and it wound up. She tried to run, but it grabbed her, and when she pulled away, it tore part of her skin or her flesh, and she still got a scar from that. But now that encounter is pretty well documented, and I know pretty much most of these family members, and I'm telling you that what they're telling is factual. But that's, like I said, I'm 20 miles from Sandra, and this encounter or this family has dealt with them about halfway. But now, seriously, the community, one of the communities between where I'm at and where Sandra is, all the kids growing up over there, it was just kind of a deal. They named the name of the community, and then they said monster. So it was this certain area, the monster. Dude, everybody around that community talked about the monster of that area. And that's where these people that I'm talking about is just a couple of miles south of that little wide spot in the road. But yeah, there's gobs and gobs of people from where I'm at to where Sandra is that's had encounters.
A friend of my brother's posted a picture of one in her backyard about 10 years ago on Facebook.
Yeah.
Wow.
On Facebook.
Yeah.
Y'all, for everybody that watches this show, do you understand, unlike Small Town Monsters, Monster Quest, unlike finding Bigfoot and everything, you understand, like, I don't know if you know this, I don't know how long you've watched the show. You know that Greg is law enforcement and firefighter and everything, but you know how many people we have in Alabama that comes on here and talks about this stuff like it's an everyday thing, because it is. You know how many people just in this show alone, I would point out, if I was watching this show on YouTube, if I wasn't part of it, do you hear her talk about a damn deer face being in the camera and being whipped back and forth? Do you think that's something that the average person says on YouTube? What about whenever she said it was kind of gray, like salt and pepper, but it had white splotches of like tufts of hair sticking out? Does that sound like something you hear a lot of people talk about Bigfoot? No, because what she's talking about is the stuff that she's actually seen. It infuriates me to no end that we have to keep going back and trying to stop and point out this person's telling the truth, because this and that and everything. I don't care in particular if anybody really believes it or what.
Well, here's the thing. Before golly, I guess it would have been 3 or 4 years before I ever even talked to Sandra. Didn't even know she existed. I went and done some work for an older gentleman, and then it just out of the blue, while I'm at this guy's house doing work, the guy's son comes in, and he says, "Hey, Dad, I'm gonna go deer hunting." Well, he starts to leave, or he starts out the door, and the older man, he says, "Don't let that monster get you." And the son, which was grown, he was probably in his 40s at least.
Ex-military.
And this dude's ex-military. He looks around his daddy and just kind of scowls at him, and just shakes his head and goes out the door. And I kind of look at the older gentleman, kind of puzzled. He starts chuckling. He said, "Yeah, that boy of mine said, I didn't think he was scared of nothing, but he swears by damn it that there's a Bigfoot right here in these woods." Said he was in a tree stand not long ago, and said there's one of them come walking up where he was at, looked at him and just walked on by and turned and went away from him. He said, "Boy, it spooked my son." Said, "Man, I don't know." Said he sure believes in it. Said he goes in the woods different than he used to. And I'm like, "Really?"
Yeah.
He said, "Oh yeah." And I told the man, I said, "Well, look, dude, I've been dealing with them for a very long time, probably 20 years at this point. And I said, I've seen more than one. And I said, they're real. Well, as I'm
Fast
here,
forward.
yeah, then fast forward, I found out like where Sandra's telling me where she grew up and where the one was looking in her window.
But I went to church with this dude.
Yeah, she ends up, she knows the older gentleman, and they went to church
And I
together.
heard the story 3 days after it happened, and I repeated it to him without him
Yeah.
telling me.
And then I go to looking because I know where the man lives and I know where Sandra lived, and I Google Earth and look. Dude, it's not but about a mile and a half crow fly through just dense woods.
And across the railroad track.
Yeah, across the railroad track and through the woods from where she had the one at her house.
I just now remember you telling me that a year ago, and I didn't know you were talking about Sandra at the time. Whenever you were like, "Oh, I know this lady that went to church with that guy." Oh, okay,
Mm-hmm.
all right.
I mean, Greg started telling me. I told him exactly who he was, where he lived, and I told him the encounter in detail because the guy come to church and telling us about it. And I said, "Well, guess what? I believe I've seen one. You know, I didn't realize we were that close. So Greg looked it up."
Mm-hmm.
I would like to hear one of those people that had the booger come up on the. Did it come up in the church, or was it right outside the church? And
The story we heard was right outside the church at a revival.
Well, now
Yeah.
the one Coombo talked about was over here in the edge of Mississippi, and y'all, it's not but about probably an hour and a half drive from here. I mean, I haven't been there, but he showed me on Google Earth, and I tracked it down, and the building's still there according to Google Earth, and it's in the middle of nowhere. But now that was a crap. Look, I don't care nothing about being involved in anything about what went on that day.
I'm just saying, I would like to hear one of those people tell about what they actually saw. But
Oh yeah.
anyway, all right, Sandra, keep
Now-
going.
You would think that would be enough. We were over and done with, but no.
She still got notes, y'all.
I have to because
I'm proud of her.
because Spencer Jameson said I had to make notes. Anyway, it's like teacher Spencer. Anyway, we went and we got at the urging of Greg and Spencer, we went ahead and put a new LED bright light at the end of the house. Now I want to back up to the night of the deer. Poor Greg again. I'm being in his ear. We get off the phone and I'm telling Jeffrey he needs to go outside and get the dogs. He's scared to death to go outside and get the dogs, right? So
Yes.
I told him I'd go with him to get a light. No, wait, I'm getting ahead of myself. That night, Jeffrey goes and gets the dogs. I walked out. When I told Greg when we were on the phone, I said, I think there's something on my ramp coming in the house. I have a ramp like Greg has, a wooden ramp coming in the door. And I said, I think there's something on the ramp. So I walk out. I'll be dang. There's footprints on my ramp. Wet footprints. It's been raining. And the footprint is like hair on the side. That's what's the most prominent about the footprint. Is you can see like strands of wet hair where it had been down on the outside of the feet. The thing had been on the ramp while I was on the phone with Greg.
Mm-hmm.
So talk about freaking out to another level. It's within 3 feet of my door or 2.5 feet of my door while I'm on the phone with Greg. So then fast forward a couple nights later, Jeffrey goes out to get the dogs and he's still scared. Jeffrey doesn't want to go out. I told him I'd go with him. He got a light like Greg had told us to, a bright light. So we're going out. I'm behind Jeffrey. Jeffrey steps out, turns around, nearly runs over me because it's standing at the corner of our dog pen on the wood side. He said that its head was above the 6-foot wire on that side. But he said when he stepped out, it took off running down at an angle towards the woods. We have another trail out behind the burn pile. I think I mentioned to Greg before, you can see where something's been going in and out there. And that's kind of the direction that it had headed in. So he got to see it again. He said it was all black and it just booked it down towards the woods. He's sitting right over here.
Jeff, what did it look like? What did you see?
the head above the wire.
About
But
how far above the wire?
pretend this is right here. It was like this.
About a foot and a half above the wire.
Yeah, foot and a half, 2 foot.
Yeah.
And it's a 6-foot panel, and like I'm telling you, the ground slopes pretty good down through there. So
So we're talking at least 7.5, 8 foot.
it's probably that same one.
I wonder if it's a juvenile coming in to Jeffrey, like curious, wanting to like interact with him, but just not sure yet.
I don't know. But now, Spencer, the afternoon, the last 2 things that's happened, we were on the phone with you, we pulled in the yard, and Jeffrey went down to get the dogs. Remember, we were on the phone, and something had pulled where the panels joined together, had pulled the panels towards the woods about 3 feet. Now, our dogs can't push them. A dachshund? No, I don't think so. And Grace she's 14 years old. She's not strong. She can't push them out like that.
She's
whole
talking
panel.
about panels of a dog pen, y'all, just so you know.
Right, the 6 by 10 panels, it was pulled about 3 feet from where it was at when you put the dogs in, down towards the woods. Today, when we got home from church, we didn't notice it before we left. It could have been that way, but we were rushing. On the east side of it, it's been not bent, like it's not damaged, but at the same joint, the opposite side, it's bent in. Probably 2.5 feet or so, Jeffrey? 3?
Yep.
It's leaning in towards the pen. And the dogs had already dug out. They came out of there. So
here's a public service announcement for everybody watching the Bigfoot show. We've said this before, gonna say it again. Right now is the time of year where there is not a lot of wild edibles and plant growth and stuff like that, and the animal population is thin because of this time of year. So right now they very much are in predator mode, or stealing pets, or stealing dog food, everything like that. If you will go back and just look through all of the accounts of missing pets, typically it is in the winter. It is almost definitely the end of December through like February, because that's a time period where there's not a lot of fruit and nuts and plants from the garden and all that kind of stuff for them to eat. So
that's
saying
what
that,
I was going to say. If the fence had been pulled, maybe they were after the dogs to try to eat them, not just so much trying to. Now, another thing too, because Spencer's right about that. Coyotes, they'll snatch a dog with a quickness. Now, did you look around the panel and see if it looked like maybe the dog or a coyote or something like that has pulled that chain link fence with its teeth?
No, it had damaged it.
You might have bends down.
But the dogs wanted out so bad. I will say this: Billy had put some welded fence wire, just roll wire around the bottom, a couple places that they had been digging out, that they tore up part of it to dig out where it's easy to dig. They wanted out that bad.
Yeah.
There's another point. Before we could go on for another 5 hours nitpicking the details about what she's talking about. Let me tell you this though. She's already stated it. I want to state it again at the end here. She's not saying that any of this stuff is 1000% Bigfoot. She never said that. She didn't see a booger do some of this stuff, like on the dog fence and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Take that with a grain of salt. It could be other things. Then again, like some of the other stuff she talked about, there is a need to get all the details out there so that everybody is weighing and measuring this stuff, comparing it to stuff that y'all have experienced. Is it a booger? We don't know. Can't say for a fact. Sounds like it.
We know
I-
since January 14th that was booger.
Well, all I'm saying is nobody on this show is saying 1000% this is what Bigfoot does. This was definitely Bigfoot activity as far as some of the things that she's talked about. If you lay eyes on a booger, y'all, if you lay eyes on a booger and you're like, yeah, I saw it, that was a Bigfoot. Come talk to us. We'll walk you through it and everything as best as we can. If you didn't see it, you're adding up all this other stuff and you're going, what else could it be? Some of the stuff that she's talking about is just, was it a booger? Don't know. She didn't say that 1000%, so I don't want to hear any crap from anybody about like, oh my gosh, it could have been this or that pushing on the panel. And
All she's doing is talking about what they have witnessed and what they've seen.
she's very brave for coming on here and telling the facts of what she has experienced. She doesn't know. She's not saying 1000% it's a Bigfoot. She is relating the details of what all has happened. Y'all should weigh and measure that compared to the stuff that you know and that you have experienced.
I mean, I know what I've seen from the time when I was 13 until this recently, and the other times. But it's like I said before, not everything in the world is Bigfoot.
That's right.
But another question I have is what can strip a? Well, I throw this out before. We have peach trees that were loaded, and then overnight they're gone. What can strip?
I know.
That kind of stuff.
I've got apple and pear trees, and it's like in one night the whole things are empty, and it's right whenever they are about to be ripe. And I've got neighbors, and even my wife is like, oh, it's a bunch of birds and deer. I'm like, how are they getting the stuff that's 14 foot up in the air? But what did Barbara say? Yeah, they're just watching at this point. So, I mean, they're not necessarily being aggressive. Let's show some of the pictures. Sandra, do you want to show the pictures? Just so you can walk up.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I can tell what they are if you want me,
Yeah. We'll pause on each one of them. Okay, guys, these are not the next Patty film. These are not the greatest pictures. Let her walk through them, and especially whenever we get to the one that was a screenshot, and then we tried to like clean it up. But you heard the story, so here. All right. What is this right here?
That there is where they're clearing some land, and down below it, we found stick structure. And I don't know if I sent you the stick structures or not. There's some that are small. These are about 2/10 of a mile from north of our house, right off the main road. But the trees in a couple of the stick structures are 20 feet long and 8-10 feet radius across it. Big chunks of trees that are there. But we noticed that we've only noticed these stick structures in the last 5-6 months, but in the last 2, the number of structures has increased a lot. There's probably 8 structures down there now, and there was only a couple before. But they're clearing out where they would have been, able to be. But that's due north of us.
That's something to take into consideration. In the past couple months, they've had more structures. This is stuff you should be weighing and thinking about. All right, now
that
you're gonna have to point this out. It's to the very right side of that front tree that's up there. What is this?
Okay, this is not far from where they're clearing. Like due north, but behind it is cleared land now. That is a blind. You can see where something's going in it, going out the other end. It's probably 15 feet long.
Possible.
Right there in the dead center, it's dark. When you really, really blow it up, Jeffrey and I both looked at it, and you can almost see a face. And I know pareidolia, I can't say it in my teeth, But anyway, it could easily be that, but it's just interesting. And I told Greg when the construction started out in front of it, I didn't go back and take another picture. They're stacking sticks, like small limbs across where that tree is in front of the opening. There's a pile about 1.5 to 2 feet tall now there.
So it's changing even right now.
Yes, it's changed.
Okay.
It's like they're blocking the entrance a little bit, obscuring it. That's a good word. They're obscuring. That was taken. That was June of 22. That's a 17-inch footprint that Billy drove through before I could get back in the yard, out in the yard with my phone to take it. It was 17 inches from the toe to the heel. You can see the basic outline, the toes, the depression. I think it was 7 inches across the heel.
With a tire track going through it.
Yeah, it was a trackway of 3, and it was right out from my blueberry bushes that it had stripped. It was the left, a right, and then another half of a left one. But that was the best one, so I took a picture of it.
After he drove that, man, I've had stuff like that happen. All right.
Now, that's the best rendering of what we can remember, that footprint, the wet one that was trying to get in the shop. And it was 11.5 inches by 6.5 inches. It was kind of an odd shape to me, but the thing that was interesting was the way the toes were all kind of that just bumps across there like they were scrunched up, and the big toe was sticking out. Another thing that crossed our mind was, could it have been a hand? But that'd be one heck of a hand.
Hey, how long ago was that? Whenever you were talking about that incident, how long ago was that?
Spring of 2020.
Spring of 2020. Hey, y'all, that's almost 5 years ago. Sandra, when's the first time you did a Bigfoot show or said boo in the Bigfoot world?
When I talked to Greg.
Okay.
When was that? September 3rd, around the 12th, 13th, September 14th. I talked to Greg on the 14th because I sent you a text message on my birthday, the 13th, and you had him call me. And we talked, 3 hours or so on the phone?
Probably.
So she was documenting this stuff for years.
I told people before, my brother believed me because he'd had experience at the pond and had seen something come out of a bean field that he couldn't explain. But my own mother told me I was a liar. She said, I hate to say this, but you're lying.
Wait, I ain't never heard that. I want to talk to your brother, but
you can't. He passed away.
He passed away.
What did he? Hey, hold on, real quick. What did he say? What did he say he saw?
It was in 2016. The soybeans were blooming, and he was out in the yard working on something. And he said, I know all the animals that should be around here. He said, I have no idea what that thing was. It was big, black, on all fours. It came out of one row, skipped over a couple rows, and went back down another row. And his words were, sister, I have no idea what that was, but it scared me to death. He never cut grass again without a gun on his lawnmower or on the tailgate of his truck. It shook him up.
Damn.
He said it wasn't a bear, it wasn't a cougar, it wasn't any kind of cat. He said it was no kind of cat. Didn't have a tail.
I think that says a lot if he was like, no, I'm not even cutting grass without a gun now.
And their property had a bluff down behind it. Probably a creek. Well, I know there's a creek down behind there. I just thought about where the creek comes out. There's a kind of a head of a creek was behind that one. That's one of my pitiful shots off the camera, but that's probably about the best one. It stepped out. There's 2 trees there to the right. You see the tops are kind of funky. It came out from behind all that privet and stuff. And then that's where it had worked its way down. It was probably about 9 feet down in the woods, past the tree line. And all we could see was its back. And every once in a while, like I said, it was leaning over to the right. You could see its arm move. It was messing with something on those logs.
So, just so everybody knows, this is a screenshot where she is looking at it from
a ring camera.
a security camera from how far away?
Billy says it's about 95, 100 feet to the edge of the tree line, and then he's about 9 feet, 10 feet inside the tree line, maybe 8 to 10. Inside the tree line.
Okay. So for anybody that has a a smart camera that's outside that's hooked to your phone, the graphics aren't the greatest anyway. So this is 110 feet away. I'm surprised that if it's motion activated, maybe something else set it off. I'm surprised it even picked it up. But look, think about this. If you have where are the popular cameras? Like I've got a Ring. There are other ones out there, but at 110 feet away, look at that dark spot right there. And I want you to think about how big that thing had to be at 110 feet away on a Ring camera.
That gray area down like under the bottom of the darkest part, that's about 4 feet of briars. There's not leaves on the forest, but it's just the blackberry briars that are all tangled up through there and privet.
Oh, okay. But now I will show you this. This is the last thing. Look here. I tried to zoom in on it, and
that
right there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I see it. I mean, I don't even need the red circle for that one. But y'all, look, I was privy to. I'm getting play-by-play like Howard Cosell's on the other end of the phone about what's going on and what it's doing as it's happening.
I'm the person that edited this, so if anybody has anything to say, they can talk to me. But
that's what? That's a big boy.
Let me explain this. Zoomed in, the pixels start expanding, right? I'm sure y'all know that. This is highly edited to bring out that dark figure right there that is in the center of it. What I want you to look at before anybody says anything, those trees are 100+ feet away. I want you to think about how big those trees are. If you see them like that in that picture at 110 feet away, those trees are whatever, 12, 13, 14 inches wide.
Spencer, that tree that's behind it, that you see the light part going up, I'm going to guess that tree, just that part that you're seeing, is between 16 and 24 inches across. So he's blocking most of that tree.
Well, that's the point. Look where that tree goes down. The thing that's in front of it is blocking the rest of the tree. So here's the thing. You can say what you want. I'll bet you $1 million she could go out and take a picture right now, and there's not something standing in front of that tree.
Already.
There is something standing in front of that tree that is blocking that tree from 100 feet away on a low resolution security camera. Whatever that thing is big. It's big. It's dark. It's contrasted. That's whenever she was freaking out and taking screenshots. That's the best we can get out of the screenshot. Well, that's the best I can do out of the screenshot. Whatever that is right there, though, is something solid, and it's blocking that tree. Take from that what you want. All right, people.
Oh, look, Spencer, what you gonna have to do? I mean, Sandra would probably let you like hammock camp there where that is. Just stroll on down.
Everybody wants me to. I'm never hammock camping again, ever. I'll camp. I'll go out there and camp. Like, y'all, just so you know, I've gone out in the middle of the woods and camped with these things underneath a tarp and had them walk up and like throw rocks and smack the tarp. At least I think that's what happened.
I mean, in my mind, when I think about Spencer hammock camping, would be like one could come up there and grab the hammock and spin it. And it'd be like if you grabbed a toilet paper and just jerked it, and the rolls go. You just be like spinning it.
Oh, we've got to be related. I'm telling you, because that's the same image I had.
I'm not hammock camping. Having
Oh,
said
come
that,
on.
I will go out there and camp with them, but I'm very cautious about how I do. I still
I know
go out in the middle of the
you're
woods
way
and do
more
it.
protected in a tent, ain't you?
Yeah, I don't know why, but mentally I'm like, I've got 2.5 foot of space
Yes.
in between me and it, and I just don't want to be in a hammock. In a hammock, I feel like a Slim Jim, and I'm only 5'10". I feel like something could just pick me up and walk away, and there would be nothing left. And
That's what I tell Eric. He's like, you got to start, sleeping in a hammock. I'm like, nope, not gonna happen, because the only way I would sleep in a hammock is if it's got a bug net, and then I'm still stuck in there. So there's more room in between you and the walls in a tent.
That's my point. In a tent, I feel like my tiny ass could flip over and scurry out. In a hammock, there is nowhere to go. If they grab you, they grab you. There is nowhere to go. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
You'd
If
be
I'm
like
in
a
the tent, I got
solid.
all my stuff with me. So, you can like
This is a burrito.
cut the bottom
Yeah.
out of the tent and take off running. And yeah, in a hammock, you're just screwed.
That
You're hot.
yeah. I mean, you're a meal ready to go.
Yeah.
I can see Misty though. If Misty goes up to Sandra, she's gonna be out there. She'll be like the witch on what was it Snow White, where she's walking through the woods with a little red apple trying to feed them. Here's red apple. Come pet me, or let me pet you.
It's hard to
No.
explain. It's hard to explain how this works in your mind. Whenever Greg first showed Misty and I the abandoned campsite that was right down the road, what was it, 500 yards from where Greg had all of his original encounters.
Yeah.
There was an abandoned campsite, and we did a video or two about it. I think Mark Green did too. And Misty and I's first thoughts was, holy crap, can we come camp here? Because that's what we do.
And what was my answer?
You best don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You better don't.
But camping in a hammock, you'll never see me camping in a hammock ever again.
Mm.
All right. Well, y'all, we're over 2.5 hours now. I think we covered a lot of it. Just know this. Sandra is right down the road from Jeff, or from Greg, rather. Obviously, it's a loaded area, at least in my opinion.
She's gonna be about 45 miles from Coonbo.
That's what I was getting ready to say. They're right underneath Coonbo. Coonbo has damn things on his property most times of the year.
About the chickens.
I did, I think.
Do what?
Jeff was wanting to tell you something about the chickens.
What about the chicken?
Tell us.
I found a footprint. I forgot to mention. I found a footprint near the chicken coop.
Oh wow!
Oh, he didn't tell me he found a footprint near the chicken coop.
A
And
booger
that's
trap?
the area of the yard that I got that other one years ago. Yeah.
Wow.
Was it just one?
It was at the door, but it looks like it's been washed over.
We've had rain since he found it.
Okay.
How big was it, Jeff?
The hill looked like it was that
About
wide.
5 inches
About
wide.
5-6 inches wide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Jeff, before we get off here, let me ask you something. You've seen these things a couple of times. Are you scared of them, and what do you think they are?
Hold on, I'm gonna let him get right back here. You can look him in the eyes. Go back over.
I'll let that charge still. They were really, I have no clue what they are, but to me, it's part scared and part interested.
Right. I agree with that, buddy. Yes.
That's a
Do you think
good
they're
answer.
related to us people, humans, or do you think it's more of an animal?
I don't know at this point. I wish I took a picture of it, but the hill
Don't we
was
all?
the hill was deeper in the ground than the rest of the footprint.
Well, yeah.
Jeff,
And Jeffrey's getting rid of all of his chickens. He's decided that he's taking a break.
Yeah, I am. Because yeah,
okay, so we're gonna touch on something here last minute. So you have autism.
yes.
Do you think that you have any kind of connection with boogers? Do you think that the boogers like you more than other people? Or do you think that you're just like everybody else and the boogers are there and
I think they're just interested in what you are when they come around you
And what's going on?
and what's going on.
so you don't think it makes a difference if you have
I don't think
autism
it
or
makes
not?
a difference at all. If mothers out there getting the chickens or dogs, not chickens, dogs, and Bigfoot comes up or around, they're just curious what we are as well.
Right.
Oh,
They're
okay.
just curious. They're just curious about you and what you're doing, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm taking a sip.
But now he agrees with me. We think this other one's a different one. I don't.
I think there's two different
He
or
thinks
three
there's
different
two or
ones.
three different ones around now, or what have been on the property.
I think there's a brown one. I think there's a gray one. I think there's a black one.
Yep.
Where's the
Well,
brown one?
That one we saw one was a different color than black. Was behind a tree.
Oh, at night it's hard to tell.
Yeah.
Jeffrey and I used to see peeking out from behind trees when we used to go shopping like at 11 at night because that's when there's less hooligans in Walmart. And we would come in and we would, I tell it like it is. And
I love her so much.
we would see people,
me too.
we would see something sticking his head out from behind the trees in the corner of the yard. But that was more back before we when the tree line was closer to the driveway. Before we cut things, cut down trees. Because we
I
cut
still
down
didn't find no signs of the chickens that are missing either.
I know. Well, if you picked it up and carried it off, if it didn't struggle.
Or so I guess in the closing section here, let me ask you, do you think everything that you've described to me does not sound like anything supernatural? Do you think that they're supernatural? Do you have any reason to think that?
No, I think they're flesh and blood, period.
With super strength or something.
I can't tell you why you get the odd feelings, but then why do you get the odd feelings when somebody's staring at you in church or somewhere else? It's just a human thing.
I mean, scientifically, we can prove stuff like infrasound coming from other animals, which it affects other animals. We're not exactly sure. I should say science is not exactly sure how it happens and over what wavelengths it happens. But so if you're coming from the point of view that everything you have seen makes you think that they're flesh and blood, I have to ask, do you think they're an ape? Do you think they're something? I don't think so either, but
I think they're ancient human something. I just do.
do you think they have extra skills or something that we
If
don't
they survive,
understand?
I don't think they cloak. I think that
There's caves.
being a forest dweller, you learn to camouflage.
Yeah. Sure.
So I think that's a logical thing that they use, the ability to camouflage. I don't think they go in out of portals, but that's me. I just don't. There's a lot of people that they're connected to UFOs and stuff.
No,
I'm
no.
sorry. I've seen shadow people.
Hey,
Sorry, that's me. I've seen
you're
shadow
entitled to
people.
your opinion. That's
I've seen shadow people, and I have seen, for lack of a better, I mean, my uncle tells me that it's a demon, but I've had things wake me up at night and want to talk to me since my brother died.
I still
Kinda
see
creepy.
Pawpaw in my doorway every time.
Jeffrey thinks he sees my dad at our house at times.
Hey,
But I don't think they're related, is what I'm saying.
hey, no, that's my point. Don't you think, as somebody, the same person that is like, hey, I don't think that boogers are supernatural. You're like, but I believe in God and I believe in this other stuff, and I've had things happen. You draw a line. You think there's a distinction between like boogers and some of this other stuff. Have you ever seen a UFO?
Have I seen something in the sky I can't identify? Yes, but would I call it a flying saucer? No.
Have you ever seen a ghost?
Depends on your definition of a ghost. I'm telling you, since my brother died, I've been tugged in the bed. I mean, I've been physically moved 8 to 12 inches.
So
I've heard noises, and I've seen, for lack of a better thing, an apparition, I guess is what you'd call it, come stand beside the bed and want to talk.
So if you've seen that, you would have to, I would think, you would have to chalk that up as supernatural or spiritual or something. You've also seen boogers.
Right.
You're saying, in your opinion, you don't think boogers are spooks or supernatural.
They're flesh and blood. They're walking this earth just like you and I walk it. They leave footprints. They poop in the woods.
And they eat things. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, I agree. I'm
But
there.
the other wobbly stuff, I can't explain it. Bible tells me that demons walk the face of the earth. So there you go.
I love Sandra. Sandra covers the entire territory.
Let's run the
that
gamut
we would
here.
ever talk about. She's not scared to say shit. I love that.
that's okay.
Hey,
Well,
the older I get, the more like I'm told, the more like my grandmother I get.
Yeah.
And she never mince words. And why?
I get straight to the
You
point.
can't
That's
handle it
all
like it is. My cousin used to say, if they don't like the way you look, tell them to look the other way.
I just think it's refreshing in the Bigfoot world to have somebody shoot the shit straight and just tell you exactly what they are thinking, exactly what they saw. After over 2 years of doing Bigfoot shows, I'm so tired of the BS. But anyway.
I mean, I always wished I could see another one, and I've seen more than another one. And I'm sure I'll see it again because we have rocks still being thrown at the house and stuff going on. So, my question to you and Greg, I asked this to Greg, why me? Why are they coming up around us?
Why you? Did you die? Did you have a near-death experience? Did you get hit by lightning?
No, but I had surgery one time and they told me I nearly died, but I don't remember it.
Do you have a history in your family of people being?
We have Cherokee in our family, my family, on both sides. My daddy said that his great grandfather, I think is right, or great grandfather was full-blooded Cherokee, and he said that they traveled the Appalachians. That's all I know.
Is there any doubt in your mind, or anybody's mind for that matter, is there any doubt that Native Americans were more in tune with nature and had a better sense of what was going on around us. I mean, nowadays you got people with their face buried in cell phones and on the computer all day long, and that's a job that they get paid for, versus 150 years ago, 250 years ago, living off the land and actually being attuned to everything. If you've got that kind of blood in you, I mean, maybe you've got some kind of sense of things that a lot of people don't.
No, I'm pH positive for the person asking that. RH positive. My I don't know why I said
Negative.
look, my cousin did a lot of, and I need to shut up because we need to cut it off. But my cousin did a lot of research into the tribes and our families on my dad's side, and my grandmother's side. I don't know a lot about except the Cherokee. But he said on that the Cherokee people, which Greg may know more about this than I do, in their individual tribe, they had bird people, bear people. You belong to a different sect, I guess is the way to put it. And he said our family was the bird people, which meant we were seers. So I don't fully understand what that means because he passed away before we got to really delve into all of it. And that's been like in the last year and a half he passed away. But he told me that our part of the tribe, we were known as the bird people.
Hold on. I don't know what bird people is.
I don't know.
Pyro wanted to know, do you have an M on your palm? I don't even know what that means.
Yes, I do.
Pyro, feel free to come on here and talk about all of the Native American and Bigfoot shit at any point.
If you've ever actually read our text that we send to you, like you would know this because it was a whole thing. Like we sent pictures.
I don't read your text every morning.
That's why you don't never know anything. You're always missing out because you don't.
There's 250 texts every morning whenever
it's supposed
I wake
to be
up.
really rare that you have the M's in your palm. And
I've got
what was it, 1%? I have them on both hands.
Yeah, same. What, Misty? We didn't talk about this in depth, but over like a month. So
I have a big M. Yep,
I have an M
on that one.
Jeff got one too.
And see, Jeffrey's not biologically my child. That's another thing. Jeffrey's adopted.
I got an N on this one, I think.
Hey,
you have a what?
An N.
He got an M on one hand and an N on the other.
He's got the whole alphabet going.
No doubt. Yeah. I mean, y'all. Look, there's so much to unpack with all this stuff. It's wild.
Well, I do think stuff like certain things, like, are you autistic? Are you a woman that is on your cycle? Do you have an M on your palm? Have you died? Have you had a near-death experience? Do you come from a family that is intuitive, gifted, psychic, all of that stuff? Y'all, I would caution you, put it in a box. Don't think that is the key. Weigh everything together. I don't think I'm Native at all. I'm pretty sure I'm Scotch-Irish by descent. I'm O negative. Does that throw me into a certain category? If you're ambidextrous, does that throw you into a certain category? All I know is there are people that move onto certain parcels of land and then they start having booger activity. There are hunters that have never thought twice about Bigfoot. And then they out there. I don't think you should weigh and measure it off of certain factors like that. I think you should look at the whole thing. It's just my opinion. There are no experts. I think you should weigh and measure. Greg didn't know crap about Bigfoot until it started happening to him.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And he grew up there. He's probably got some kind of native in him, even though he's obviously Irish with that big ass red beard. But all I'm saying is, I don't think you should get lost in going, oh, well, if you've got this, if you've experienced this, you're more sensitive. They're going to come to you. Just weigh and measure everything as a whole. Don't get lost on those little details, please. Just my opinion.
Hey Spencer, before we wind it completely down and shut it off, y'all once again, look, if y'all anybody watching this, if y'all want to join the Facebook page, if you submit a request to join, please answer the 3 little questions. It'll take you about 2 seconds, so we really know that you're a real person and not a scam or a bot or something like that. Please do that. Another thing, let me touch on this. I know this is throwing it out of gear. Our brother Robbie Rains' book is out. You can go download it, or you can either order a paperback copy. But it's his Shadow Walkers series. Yes, it's Silver Star is the first book out. I mean, guys, look, I've read it. It's really, really good. The what?
Did you read it?
Yeah, I read it. Yeah,
Look,
brother.
It's not like he sent me a copy or anything.
Well, that's because I've been hooked on phonics, and look, Robbie actually put me into the when he's writing them. I'm reading it. He's sending me chapters, and I'm reading it and giving him feedback on it. And he's got book 2 in the works, and he's about 7 chapters deep. And y'all, I'm not kidding you. I'm like an addict waiting on a fix, because he'll send me a couple of chapters, and then I have to wait a few days to get caught up. And I'm just on pins and needles. But I'm telling you, for me, his second book is going to blow the first book out of the water. And the first book's really, really good.
And DA has a new book out. We've got the link on our Facebook page.
Mm-hmm.
Go check that out. Definitely check out Robbie's. Also, one of our brothers, God, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but go check out Wendell Mosley's new YouTube channel and Facebook page, Bigfoot 911. Wendell. As much shit as you give me, Wendell, I'm still promoting your damn channel.
You're the one that made him head security at the damn main gate.
Wendell's gonna blow all of us out of the water. Yin's watch.
Okay, he's going viral. Wendell's going viral, and I'm gonna say this again.
Wendell will get in there and ask the damn questions nobody else wants to. Like, he ain't scared. Like,
no.
You gonna see there's gonna be a lot of people getting Wendelled.
Yes, sir. Yes, exactly. Yeah, you'll get Wendelled. All you gotta do is walk up. You get Wendelled.
100%.
But now look, y'all, please go look at Wendell. And I gotta ask this: am I the only person, when you see Wendell in some of those pictures, he looks like Jack Nicholson in The Shining? I'm waiting on somebody to start going red rum, because he looks just like it. It's amazing. It's like, even my wife goes, "You know who Wendell looks like that picture?" I'm like, "Yeah, Jack Nicholson when he filmed that show." She's like, "Oh my God, yes."
Y'all check out Roger's show too, Squatch and Holler. He's got a new co-host that he won't let have anything to do with us. He's trying to keep her. He's trying to keep her untainted, I guess. But y'all check out Squatch and Holler. And anyway, there's a lot that we could go into. Remember Jeff Townsend and Christy. Have a little bit of thought in there for the people that go before us. We're all one big family.
One more important thing, Spencer. Let me throw this out here, and I know what he would say. He's like, y'all shouldn't do that. Y'all, this and that. But y'all keep old D.A. Roberts in your thoughts and prayers. He's had a string of pretty rough luck between having his surgery and all back a few months ago, and he had some problems at his home. He's the house that they live in is an older house, and they had like major wiring issues to the point that they're having to move out. The whole house has got to be
Really?
rewired, and they're like in the middle of having to move all this stuff.
Oh my
And
God.
that's the reason he's got his show kind of postponed right now, because where he's moving to, the Wi-Fi, they don't have Wi-Fi, so he's trying to work on getting Wi-Fi there temporarily. And y'all, I mean, he's having to spend out a lot of money on, like, they're having to rent like moving trucks and this and that. And the part that he probably wouldn't want, like really broadcast, but I'm doing it anyway, is look, guys, if you've got an extra few bucks in your pocket and want to help somebody out, I mean, he's not going to ask for it, but I'm just going to tell you that, hey, if you want to help somebody out that can probably really use it, because I can't imagine just getting it dropped in your lap that you got to relocate for a while, and then your home's got to be rewired, and you're having to rent all these undue expenses.
Yes.
He does have a Patreon account, so y'all, please, if you've got an extra few bucks that y'all want to help somebody out.
Surgery, after him having all that, because I know he's going to have a lot of doctor bills too.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. So seriously, guys, I mean, I know they could probably really use it, and ain't no other man's going to ask for it, so I'm just going to ask for him.
Support the people that are real people and real friends and real people in the community. DA writes books. He's an author. He's a very talented author.
Yeah.
Robbie is writing. Robbie is a damn cop. If you're not going to support law enforcement, I don't know what is wrong with you. I don't care. Let that be out there on a YouTube show. Support the people that you know and the people that are in this community. They're the real people. We had a guy come on and wanted to make donations to the channel. And I'm sorry, I'm just going to say it like it is. We don't want your donations. If we do a meet and greet or something like that, and you want to give $5 towards the meet and greet, we'll take it. We'll use it. Other than that, care about people. Be a family. Get to know these people. Be friends with them. Message them. Love them. Pray for them. Whenever they have hard times, support them. We are a family. If you don't understand that, you don't belong on this channel. Mark and Rebecca Green.
And don't take it like Spencer said. It we are greatly appreciative that you want to donate to us.
Yeah.
You don't say it the way you should.
I'm just saying we don't.
Somebody that could use it instead of us if you want to do something like that. And we know everybody's having a hard time right now. We're not saying, hey, go give you house payment or whatever. If you can, fine. If you can't, trust me, we understand. But if you wanted to donate to us, that would be a good way for you to do it, is to another channel that we support that could actually use it. There you go, Spencer. Yeah. Let me say it for you.
Yes, she's right.
Yeah, and seriously, y'all, I mean, for me, a lot of times instead of me tithing at church, I'd rather just slide it to somebody that I see the need. I see where it goes, and for me, a personal, somebody personally that I know that could really use it. Because let's face it, y'all, you can be sitting on top, and the next blink of an eye, you're on the bottom.
Give where you're there to give.
Exactly.
We all hit hard times. No matter how good you are, no matter how good off you are, you could have something like that, like what he's talking about. Your whole house needs to be rewired. Holy crap, that's expensive. I don't care how much money you have or how good you are. You don't plan for $15,000, $20,000 going out the window when you're not expecting it.
We don't.
Well, look, let me throw this in here, because our compadre right here's got to have some MRIs, and she's
just had 3.
Oh, really?
Yep. So everybody, please be praying for her that everything comes out clear and good, and this and that. So,
they're looking for MS or a brain tumor.
We'll pray for you right now if you want, Greg.
Mm. Man, look, you don't want me to lead it, dude. I'd be broke down.
Well, I ain't got nothing to say other than y'all bow your head.
I can do that.
Dear God, who art in heaven, please protect Sandra, take care of her and her family, and let everything come back positive, and take care of all of us that are in this together. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Amen. Yeah,
I ain't got nothing better. I hope that works.
He
dude,
hears.
he does. I guarantee you the Lord hears it. I've done lived through the miracles. I know what they're like. And he's still in the miracle business, 100%. But y'all, like I said, I'll try to get a link on DA's Patreon account. Y'all want to try to reach out to some of us, message me, whatever. I may not know how to do it, but I know how to get a hold of people that knows how to make stuff happen.
That's true. All right, y'all. Where are we at here? Sandra, Jeff, thank you for coming on and answering everything. I'm sorry about that. I hope it made sense to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
No problem.
Anytime.
All right. Thank y'all. It was a good show. Love
Enjoy
y'all. Thank you
Big
for
love,
everybody that
everybody.
watched. Appreciate it. Well, we do care about each other. We're all family.
Hey, once again, everybody, look, if y'all like what we're throwing out there, share us out there to some of your friends that may be interested, and hit that like button for us. It really helps promote it. So thank y'all.
Yep. See y'all next week. Take care. Have a good one.
Bye, y'all.
Squirrel.
Hey, y'all. Hey, Spencer. We're swapped
Hello,
around.
everybody. Huh?
We're swapped around again.
Yep. I know you do it on purpose.